TikTok, it's time to rock, and all those stories that you guys heard, all the stories out there about how the 5150 show and the British Electric Blues show can't be bribed, can't be bought, are incorrect, because we've been bought easily and cheaply.
I'll do anything for a dime.
We know that, Kurt.
It's my pleasure to sit back and hand over the reins of the show to Hoss himself, and we're going to have some fun, people. We're going to have some fun with this stream, with this show. So I look forward to it. We've got a couple of things, obviously, that we have to get out of the way quickly. You'll notice on the bottom there, we've got a new Instagram account. We've got Simon's Instagram account there with everybody else's. So if you guys are watching our replay and haven't subscribed to all these accounts down there, please do.
He's
need
active.
Your subscriptions.
He's active in the social medias.
Yeah. And that will keep you related and in contact with what we do over here on this channel. So we appreciate it. But thank you for joining us. I'm normally at work, and I suspect these other guys here would normally be at work too. So what have we done? Have we skived off work like we were like young guys? You know, about the same time this album came out, we were skiving off school. So good to see.
That's right.
Good to see these habits haven't changed.
I had to exit the street corner from the panhandling tonight just so I could join you guys to get my income. Normally, I'm out there with a coffee can and a cardboard sign. We'll work for food.
Oh my gosh. So the Rev's going to just do a bit of a shout out for a couple of things, and he's probably going to go through the chat. And then Hoss is going to take over and
sure.
Yeah, tell us all about something.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so we had about 14 people waiting behind the curtain for this baby to start. Still active in the chat. We got Christopher Live Sawa. Chris, talked to you a little bit on the Gizmachi Boner Jams show earlier today. We got Ellen, of course. She is a staple and always here. Thank you, Ellen. We have Helen Winter. Thank you, Helen, for joining. And then as of late, starting to be a usual rat bag in the cellar, we got John ZD351, not to be confused with ZD350, but 351, a bigger cubic inch motor than the 350. Yeah. Also, family, the channel, Mr. Mark Tanner. Thank you, Mark. And then never a miss. He's like Nolan Ryan, the pitcher, Nelson Rodriguez. And then all the way down south in South America, Brazil, we got Teresa, always a staple on the channel. Thank you, Teresa. And then we have Tim Thomas as well. And then let me see if we have anyone else that's latecomers. Mr. Ben Coombs. Thank you, Ben, for joining. Appreciate it. Ben. All the way from Canada, Ben Coombs. And I think that's about it, unless if I've missed anyone, give me a thumbs up or just say hi in the chat. But, yeah, thanks for joining, guys. This is another midweek show, and I think Andrew likes these takeovers because it involves zero preparation, zero commitment. All he has to do is click the mouse one or two times, and he can sit back, drink a couple Coke Zeros, and it just looked pretty.
Of course.
All right.
You look at that bead. Yeah.
Sean Zimmerman is joining in as well. Thank you, Sean. I know you're a big proponent of Rob Johnson. You're always on his channel, and you joined a couple days ago when I was on with Rob. And then, of course, old man Quentin James saying, "Hey, kids."
Awesome.
Hey,
And
Mark.
then before I turn it over to the Simon Hosford, I just wanted to pump the show that we're doing in, 2 days, 3 days? I'm a little confused on what's going on, but we're actually going to rank the tracks to Van Halen's live right here, right now. The band went out on tour in promotion of the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album, and they recorded 2 nights with 15 cameras, 2 live shows. And Warner Brothers was asking for another record, and they actually wanted to have the band do a best of record, and the band wasn't having it. And we'll talk a little bit about this in a couple days, but not to let the cat out of the bag. But Warner Brothers actually wanted Sammy Hagar to redo a couple David Lee Roth tunes for this best of record. And of course, we know Ed Leffler wasn't having that. So he talked him into letting them do a live album. And as we know, Van Halen hadn't done a live album in the first era with David Lee Roth. So it was actually good that they did a live album. And I think a lot of people give this DVD and CD or album a lot of flack because, they went in and tweaked it and did some touching up. But I mean, come on, we didn't have a friggin' live album from Van Halen. Like, let it be. Enjoy it. Take it for what it's worth. If you are a drummer or a guitarist, these tracks rock. I was listening to it last night, and they rock. I don't care if the tracks were doctored up or if they were 100% live, they rock. If you're a fan of Eddie, it's Eddie on guitar, it's Alex on drums, it's Michael Anthony on bass and backup, and it's Sammy Hagar redoing the vocals. It's a great, great album. So we're going to dive into it, controversy or not. We're going to talk about this album. It's never a skip. Don't miss it.
It has to be done. It has to be done, and I'm glad that the Rev is leading the charge on that. And
sorry,
Brad
that
and
was
I
me on my soapbox.
Yeah. Brad and I certainly look forward to being part of that show. So, yeah, we look forward to it. Got a couple of other people that have jumped in. We've got Grace and Helen who are in the chat here with us. So that's fantastic, guys. Thank you for joining us. We're going to throw some social media accounts up on the screen. If you guys want to follow us there, that'll be really, really cool. But we look forward to that. I want to do a quick one more shout out. 3 of us are going to be here with 3 other guys, and we don't often do this on this channel. We're going to have 6, count that, 6, maybe 7 hosts in 5 hours' time. We're going to do a Charlie Watts tribute show. So I don't know how that's going to work. That's going to be controlled mayhem, hopefully. But sub to the channel, and we'll let you know when we go live. That's in about 5 or 6 hours' time.
Herding kittens.
Look forward to that one too. But Hoss, start talking, brother.
Start talking. I know I've been quiet. Well, actually, Kurt, I'd like to just firstly say about the, people giving Van Halen flack for, doing post-production touch-ups on the album and stuff. Big deal. Everybody does that. I can't think of any live video that I've seen that hasn't been touched up in post-production. And obviously the degree varies. Like, some people will only fix a mistake, right? And some people will go in and replace a whole instrument just because the sound quality is better than the mic bleed live, all of that. I've been involved in live records myself. One was a Men at Work live in Brazil, which was pretty much untouched in post-production. That was rare. But then also when I did the Full Circle DVD with the Little River Band guys, there was a lot of post-production in that record, So obviously the vocals are what they are live and stuff, because that has to be. But, in terms of fidelity of sound, and, look, back when I was a kid and I used to watch, the Yngwie Malmsteen Live 85 in Tokyo, I couldn't understand why I could see a string hanging off his guitar and he's still shredding and it's staying in tune. Now, And that was because as a kid, I had no idea that, what he's obviously done is he's replaced that lick or that solo in post-production, But even live without a net, like it's not probably touched up in the same amount as right here, right now. But I mean, there are parts where you can watch Michael Anthony playing the bass right on stage, and where his hand is definitely not what he's playing,
Correct.
So there's definitely been some touch-ups with that one, but I think it's, for me, I think as long as it's not a full re-record, so what? What you're wanting is the energy and the visual that you get from a live concert. And so, if it's going to be immortalized, then why not do some post-production touch-ups? Because the difference is when people go and pay to see a live gig, they don't get to take it home with them. It's only for that moment in time, that 2 hours, right? So it doesn't matter if there's a couple of bum notes because someone's jumping off a drum riser, but obviously if you're going to now immortalize it as a product for sale, then yeah, I mean, you'll want to fix a couple of those things. But so, I mean, I really don't understand what all the fuss is with that either. I mean, it's not like they were a brand new band and no one realized they could play.
Right. And if anyone's seen them live, they're pretty dang tight, and they put on a hell of a show. And Live Without a Net, they didn't put that out on CD or an album. So that whole thing was produced to be on, Laserdisc or VHS. This one was actually done for a CD, and then they decided to put on DVD later. But they wanted it to be good. That just says what type of band they are. They wanted their product that they're putting out to be, we won't call it perfect, but they wanted it to be good. They wanted it to be sellable.
I just think it's the world we live in. It's not realistic for people to think that someone's going to immortalize a live concert and not do any post-production touch-ups to like a couple of little fluffs or something weird that might have happened, like, what someone might have tripped over or whatever the thing is in a whole 2 hour show. You don't throw out the whole 2 hour show just because of that. So you just fix up a few bits, It would, I mean, obviously when people record an album in the studio, they're not only allowed one pass at so it's like, so can I do that again? No, that's it. That's what's going on the record, So right. For me, it's the same thing. If it's going to be forever and a record company is going to market it and sell it, then yeah, fix up a few bits. Yeah. If it doesn't change that, what we get to feel when we watch it is the energy of it. I think that's the most important. And you can feel the energy on that video.
And that's a good thing, Hoss. That's a good thing for us to bear in mind, the energy of the DVD, and we can talk about that in depth on that show. Before I pass it on to the rest of the panel, I've got to do a couple of really important shout-outs. So sorry for allowing me to interrupt. I've got to do a shout-out to Ben Coombs.
Yeah.
Who,
hey, Ben.
I haven't seen Ben in the show for a long time. So Ben and this channel go back years. So please subscribe to Ben's channel, guys. He was active in pushing our channel years ago. And
Thanks,
also
Ben.
Fruitcake Tony's in the chat. So again, please subscribe to Fruitcake Tony. Good friend and family member of our shows and what we do here. So look forward to the 5150 show where we can deep dive and
it's going to be good
about those controversies. But Hoss, I'm really keen to hear about you, Number of the Beast, 666, and all these tattoos that you've got on you, and I
don't have any.
Have you got Eddie tattooed on you?
Not 666, unfortunately. No, not 666. I've got 999, but then I was told that he did it accidentally upside down. So
Yeah, everything else is fluffy animals and
buttercups
and flies and birds.
Hey, actually, speaking of tattoos and the legendary Ben Coombs, we actually share a tattoo, if you can believe that. Which is
really?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Which is that guy.
Faith.
Oh, Faith.
Yeah.
Do you have the David Lee Roth tattoo ink conditioner?
Don't have my ink conditioner. No, I should. But
now.
I've seen on Ben's arm somewhere it is Faith tattooed in not exactly the same style, but that's right. Yeah, Andrew knows. Very good. All right. Well, let's get to the point of the matter, shall we? Number of the Beast was the very first vinyl that I ever bought, and I was 11 years old, and I bought it off a kid that was in my primary school, so that lived down the street, and his older brother had it, and I don't know. In hindsight, I think it's kind of strange that he was selling his older brother's records, so maybe he was doing it on the sly for some extra change. I don't know, but anyway, one day he pulled it out of his school bag and said, "Hey, I've got this record. Do you want it?" And I, of course, I was 11, so I didn't know about Iron Maiden or heavy metal or anything like that. I was already listening to rock music and stuff, and I was already strumming my classical guitar as hard as I could with bits of plastic from around the house as makeshift picks. So I was into it, but the cover looked really cool. And actually, I've got it here. I've got the vinyl that I had. There we go.
Wow.
I mean, and that speaking of such things, right? That's back in the day where people used to hand paint album covers, and they were works of art as well as the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that when I first think of Iron Maiden, it's the artwork, the albums, the jackets, the T-shirts, the album covers. It's like it's a whole nother level.
Oh yeah. I mean, like their merch side of thing was really as impressive almost as the Kiss merch side of things. And I used to have a massive poster of that album cover on my bedroom wall, and it's so detailed. There's so many tiny things that I would just stare at it all the time, and I'd find a new thing about it. Like there's all these it's obviously meant to be purgatory or hell or something, right? So you've got all these flames on the bottom, but if you look really carefully, there's all these tiny little black figures that are all supposed to be people burning in the flames. And I used to just go, okay, what's that one doing? And I was amazed that whoever painted it, and I'm sorry, I should know because I'm sure it's a famous artist that did most of the Iron Maiden stuff, but Derek Riggs, thank you, John. They must have spent so much time, and it must have been done on a pretty big canvas originally, or a pretty big, pane of glass or something, because the size of the people, you can still see all the details. You can see their eyeballs popping out, but it's like, it's like 1 millimeter high on the poster. So yeah, that was really cool. And so the artwork drew me in, and then when I took it home and put it on the turntable, straight away I was like, oh yeah, what's this? This is awesome, And for me at the time, it was good because not much later, my guitar teacher gave me some cassettes of Van Halen and Malmsteen and stuff like that, and I really took to that straight away. But really, my thing with that stuff, it was too complicated for me to really attempt to play at that age. It was more about that I was impressed by listening to it. Whereas with the Iron Maiden stuff, because it's like mostly sort of fifths, like power chords, and relatively easy to understand movements, I could learn the Iron Maiden riffs. So really, that was kind of my first entry into sort of distorted heavy rock guitar, because it was at sort of my ability level to play and understand it. And so that was great. So that was like a sort of a soft landing for me into that world, instead of going straight into the crazy stuff, like Van Halen and Malmsteen and whatever, which is obviously just freaky shit to try and do at any age. And then, and I like the songs on it too. So it was heavy and it was big, and the drum sounded big, but also it was kind of melodic. A lot of the other stuff that I heard like around that time, and the records that were being passed around, I didn't like as much. I liked the aggression and the heaviness of them, but they weren't as melodic to me. And I sort of liked that, some of the Iron Maiden verses might not be that melodic, but the choruses definitely are. When they get to a chorus, it's an Iron Maiden song, because sort of Bruce lets go, and it becomes less about the gravel in his voice and telling the story of like all those verse lyrics, if it's Run to the Hills or something, and then you get that big chorus, and so I liked that about it too, because really I grew up mostly listening to pop when I was really young, and just listening to the FM radio. So the Iron Maiden choruses gave me a little bit of that sense of pop. whereas of course, you know, the two sort of hard pan, you know, distorted guitars and the big drums and everything gave me that sort of aggression and energy that obviously I found really, really exciting back then. So that album got played a lot. Like I used to play that record a lot when I first got it. So yeah, got to know it pretty well. And one of the things that should be said actually is I think that, I mean, that was their third record. And it really sounds very different. And obviously it was the first record where Bruce Dickinson came in as the singer. Before that, they had Paul Di'Anno, and the band really had a pretty different sound. It was almost, to my ears anyway, kind of more punk than British heavy metal, you know. And then whether it was by default or by design, when Bruce came in, I just think it sort of went into that more melodic heavy metal thing instead of punk, you know. But actually, I had the earlier records as well, and I kind of like them. They sound completely different to every single other record in the Iron Maiden catalog, but they're good, you know. They're just a bit different. It's not dissimilar to how we talk about the David Lee Roth versus Sammy Hagar era, you know. It's kind of that same thing, you know. It's quite different, but really, you know, it's got roots in the same place. But you know, I think that full credit should go to Martin Birch, the producer, because he'd already worked on you know, Deep Purple and White Snake and a whole bunch of things. Actually, I think the first record he ever did was a Jeff Beck record in 1969. I forget the title of it now, but yeah, so he'd actually like done like a lot of really, really good things. And there's a funny story that when he first became aware of Iron Maiden sort of, you know, playing around England, he wanted to work with them. And they knew of him, of course, because of all the records he'd already produced and engineered, and they wanted to work with him. But on the first two albums, they didn't ask him because they just figured he was too big shot for them. So as it turns out, you know, he wanted to work with them, they wanted to work with him, and they just didn't, just because they never spoke, which is sort of funny. But anyway, they did hook up on the Number of the Beast record. And I just think the fact that he not only produced it, but engineered it as well, took on both roles. I mean, I got to say, for 1982, those drums, especially, look, it all sounds good, but I think that quite often how you can tell apart a producer and an engineer around that era, like early 80s, especially with rock and hard rock and heavy metal, is the sound of the drums, you know. And not just are they sort of big and bombastic, but like is the tone of the drums like really good, you know. And I think that what Martin Birch did on that record, the drums sound absolutely awesome, you know. And it's definitely, to me, sonically a step up from the previous two records. So it had that whole lift of production elements as well, you know.
Look, I agree with you. Hoss, and I'm just going to jump in and just
please jump in.
A couple of things that you've said. Sorry, but look, I remember when this album came out, and I was listening to it. I was at high school. I went to a Catholic high school, so we understood exactly the cover, you know, Purgatory. So you know, we knew what was going on, you know. So but I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it's really interesting, the point that you've made about the sound, because I'm going to share something with you guys. So at this time, we were listening to Mob Rules by Black Sabbath. Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell had come out. I remember at the back of my mind. Def Leppard's High and Dry, and this album. So we were listening to this stuff around that same time, and it was just mind blowing, if you guys can understand. But I remember a friend of mine introduced us to what's Tommy Lee's band? Motley Crue. Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil had come out, and we were I think it was Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil. Maybe
what year was that, Andrew? Was that around the same time?
Yeah, around the same
81,
time.
82?
Yeah. And we could tell the difference in the tone was remarkable. We preferred the British stuff. The British stuff just sounded better, just sounded so much better, Simon and Brad, than, and this is no disrespect to Motley Crue, don't get me wrong, because I went on when Girls came out, you know, and Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah,
but,
no,
but at the time,
I know you don't mean any disrespect, of course. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, Girls is a great sounding record.
Yeah, but just comparing those albums, though, Brad and Hoss, to, you know, 13, 14-year-olds, you know, we could pick up the different vibe that you're talking about the drums, about the frequency, the mix, really important stuff that even inarticulate guitar players back then could easily define.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've always liked Martin Birch. You know, he's producing and engineering like through records like
awesome, isn't it?
You know, even back to Machine Head and stuff. I know he's engineering on that stuff, but even with Whitesnake, the early like the Black Sabbath stuff with Ronnie, I think Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. He was amazing, and the tones he pulled for this record, you know, they suit the band so perfectly. The drums
so
sound
perfectly.
Great.
Yep.
The bass is just, it's got presence. It's there. It sits well with the drums, and the guitars are just floating on top. Everything's mixed perfectly. I mean, 1980 was it? When was the record come out?
82 came out, but they probably recorded it in 81. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So early 80s. This it's a pretty iconic record, sound wise as well as song wise for me.
Yeah, and you're right. And actually, what Christopher says there, yeah, that's true. They all the stories I've read and heard as well is that Paul just became too unreliable in the end. I actually quite like the sound of his voice. You know, it's completely different to Bruce Dickinson, but like I said, it's just different but good. You know, but yeah, from what I can understand, he was just partying too hard. You know, and I think that's cool. You know, I think it's when I was young, I would have just assumed that all the metal bands like to party hard. I wouldn't have thought that. But as we now know about the guys in Iron Maiden, you know, Bruce and Steve Harris and everyone, I mean, they're hardworking guys, and they were really on a mission to do something. And, you know, I mean, Steve Harris, what a powerhouse. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but he wrote that whole record. I mean, it is a Steve Harris record, essentially. I think 22 Acacia Avenue he co-wrote with Adrian Smith.
Yep.
And there might, I can't remember, there might be one other thing that was a co-write, but I don't think so. I think that's the only thing. Obviously, someone in the chat might know and can correct me, but essentially,
Gangland.
I mean,
Gangland
Harris is on.
Gangland.
Oh, Gangland, you're right. You're exactly right. Was with Clive, the drummer, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, and when you listen to Gangland, and you know, we can go through the tracks from top to bottom, you know, soon anyway. But when you listen to Gangland, it's very much, you can tell it was co-written by a drummer, because that one is very much more about the drums than the other elements. So yeah, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Having said that, though, I mean that Steve Harris writes all that stuff. I think he said in a documentary I saw that pretty much he writes, unless it's a co-write from the ground up, he writes the whole song except for the guitar solos, of course, because obviously he leaves that to the guys. The only thing I'd say about that, which strikes me as a bit funny, as we know with Van Halen, they just split everything 4 ways right from the beginning. I'm more of a subscriber to that. That's probably the way to go if you're going to be in like a sort of a you know, quote unquote, a band of brothers, you know, and you're doing all the hard miles together. You're doing all those early years, you know, probably cruising around in a van, doing all the driving yourself. I just think that that it's interesting that when, you know, you look at a Van Halen record, it's always the 4 names. You look at an Iron Maiden record and it's just Harris, 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 Harris. And that's okay. I do think probably a greater percentage should go to the person that wrote the song. But I also think that when you're in an original band, I mean, who cares? They're making enough money, right? Share the love around a bit, because the truth is that without Dave Murray and Adrian Smith and Bruce Dickinson, and, you know, Clive played on the Number of the Beast record, but as we know, it became Nico after that.
You got no band.
I'm sorry, but then you're just a bass player with songs, you know?
Got no band.
Yeah, because the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts, always. And that, you know, we talked about it the other week, didn't we? That capturing lightning in a bottle is so contingent on all the ingredients in the cauldron, you know? And I just think you take out one of those things and it's like a house of cards and the whole thing just doesn't work, you know? But anyway, I didn't actually mean to go down that tangent, but I just thought it was interesting that when I was going down the rabbit hole during the week and having a look at some of the stuff, that even on Wiki, it's still very clearly like all the songwriting, you know, like I said, unless it's a co-write from the ground up, goes to Harris. But credit to him, and this is really my real point, is he really did write that whole album pretty much, you know, and what a feat, and what a unique and original bass player. I mean, Steve Harris is one of those bass players where as soon as you hear him play, whether he was playing on his own or with, you know, Maiden, you just go, yep, that's Steve Harris. He's got that slightly more mid-rangey kind of bass sound, which it has to be, because if it was really subby, it would just the definition would get lost in how fast he's playing with his fingers, you know. I just think, actually, John says there, Bruce was heavily involved in writing Children of the Damned, Prisoner. I didn't, I see. Okay. Fair enough, John. That's good. Thanks for the correction on that. I didn't know that. Yeah, but that's good to know. Anyway, Bruce flies them around in his 747, so I think he did all right out of it in the end. You know? If you're buying 747s, you're doing okay. Yeah. So what was I going to say? Well, anyone got anything else they want to?
I think what you're saying with you know the band thing. I mean, Steve Harris was a pretty much the driving force by the sounds of it at this point in their careers, without a doubt. And so yeah, I mean, obviously he took a lot of credit for it, and you know, rightfully so in a sense. Also, I agree with you too. You know, when there's 4 people in a band or 5 people in a band or whatever, and they all contribute to a sound, a song, an album, they should all get some sort of take on it. Like their contribution, in my opinion, is so important. And all the guys in this band, their contribution, like for this record and onwards, is you know, it's invaluable. The sound of the band is all of them, not necessarily just Steve Harris, but Steve Harris obviously was the driving force. You know, as you just discussed with like Van Halen, they split it, but I still believe everybody knew that it was Eddie's music. You know, everyone knew. Just, you know, Ed wrote the songs, and I guess from a perspective, what we're getting at with this is the Steve Harris influence at this point in the band was the driving force, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think so too. But like, so it's really both things, isn't it? Yes, Steve Harris is the driving force, and I think a band needs a driving force, because otherwise, I don't know. I just, even if all members of the band are kind of equal in their contributions, I still think it benefits from having someone that's kind of the leader. You know, maybe 100%. Maybe that just comes down to how human beings work generally, but it's got nothing to do with music specifically. You know. Actually, if I can do a couple of shout outs, I can see Lawrence from LPD Pedals there in the chat. Hey, Lawrence, legend. I've actually got a couple of videos on the way for some gorgeous pedals that I have of his. And Lucy, sorry, I didn't say hello to you before when I saw you in the chat, but hey, Lucy, thanks for dropping in. And I think we've got Jason Vorher here as well, who is the bass player of Fair Warning. So, I saw him in the chat earlier too.
Cheers, Jason.
But, so, you know, I mean, Martin Birch did a great job. Actually, here's a funny story if we want to talk about Martin Birch. And Brad, if you watch the classic, if anyone hasn't seen the classic albums, Number of the Beast, you can find it online. Or of course, you know, you can download it on iTunes or whatever, but it only goes for 45 minutes, but it's a great, concise little pocket of information about that album, and really good interviews with the guys. They're all really sweet. You know, which like even when when I was young and listening to this stuff, I didn't assume that these would be like just your regular nice guys down at the pub playing pool at all. You know, I just thought they were hardcore guys, like, you know, with like leather jackets with studs and like with, you know, switchblades in their pockets. And I just like, I thought that the heavy metal sound and lifestyle was kind of not separate, but actually it turns out that they're just sweethearts of guys, you know. And so the doco is really interesting from that point of view too. You sort of get to know the personalities and stuff. But one of the stories is that when they were recording the song Number of the Beast, Martin was driving home from the studio and he had a car accident with a minivan. And as he got out of the car, he looked up and realized the whole van was full of nuns, which would have been, he must have thought he was dreaming because they're working on 666, the Number of the Beast. And he comes to and crawls out of his car. He's a bunch of nuns looking over him. That had to have felt like a dream for sure. Anyway, the thing that, for anyone that doesn't know this story, that's even more surreal than that is that when it was a Range Rover he was driving, and when he took it to get repaired, the bill in pounds exactly for the repair was 666 pounds. That is just so bizarre. So there you go. So maybe extra forces at work helping the Iron Maiden boys along, you know.
I watched that, and I watched it last night, that link you sent to me, and I watched it, and I've seen it years ago, Hoss, and obviously I watched it and I was like, wow, man, I completely forgot about the story. But yeah, so funny, man. That's it. Yeah.
You couldn't, I mean, if you're writing a movie and you were just making it up, that's the kind of thing you would make up and put in a movie, you know? So I just think that actually happened. That must have really, I don't know if I was in the band back then, that would have made me think, maybe we shouldn't put this song on the record, you know? There's too many spooky things.
Rewrite the lyrics.
Yeah. Maybe it should be 777, the only way to heaven or something, you know? Yeah, pretty funny. But, and the other thing, I'll tell you the other thing that I liked about albums back then, 8 songs. Thank you. Don't, you know, so many albums, it's all about just like, because I think the artist feels like it's value for money for the listener to like, oh no, we'll put 12 songs. And it's like, I don't want to listen to 12 songs in a row. And even, I mean, they were different days. We all had more time. There was no social media. There was no internet, you know. And you could just sit and put the headphones on and listen to an album, but still you don't want to be sitting there for more than an hour, you know, you've got other things to do. I just love that. I just think, and the early Van Halen records were the same. They're only like 9 or 10 songs, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 8 songs, 4 songs aside. I just think that's brilliant. You know, don't bore us, get to the chorus. It's that kind of mentality, you know. It's and hey to Nina Ferro in the chat. I just saw you up there. Nina will be singing at the tribute to Van Halen show that we're going to do at the Corner Hotel. So, and Andrew, yeah, if you haven't heard Nina sing, you will be in for a treat. She's going to sing When It's Love and finish the night with Dreams.
Wow, can't wait.
Yeah.
Hopefully our revolving roaming reporter might be there and he might capture a bit of that for us.
I have a funny feeling your revolving roaming reporter might be there. And no, I insist. I insist that I'd love to hang out with Brad for the whole day if he's able to, you know. And I just think that would be, and that's whether he's filming anything or not, doesn't matter. I just think it would be a fun hang, and that'll make the day more fun for me as well, you know.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm there, brother. I'm there.
Awesome. So, okay. I mean, we could go through the tracks maybe now if you guys like. I mean, I feel like
you've done a really good. You've actually, Andrew, I'm a bit worried, mate. My job's in jeopardy. I think.
Why?
You know, Boss has just taken over and.
Before we jump into
come on, Brad, you're never a stick, mate.
Thanks, man.
there's just a couple of things that I'd like to say, and maybe Brad too. Just like our personal observations and memories of this album's, like pretty important, I think, for me, Hoss.
Yep.
And if anybody else in the chat wants to share the first time they heard this album, so when I was at school, I had a couple of mates who were metal nuts, and they were listening to Iron Maiden before this album came out. Now, I was never a fan of Iron Maiden.
Yep.
When with Killers, and what was the other album?
I think
Killers
the
and
first
Iron
album
Maiden.
was just self-titled. Yeah.
Yeah, Iron Maiden and Killers. I knew the songs, but when this album came out and I heard it, the difference in the vocal approach that you mentioned, Hoss, was different. It was night and day, and that's what immediately grabbed me, was the way that Bruce sang, as opposed to that sort of punkish kind of gravelish voice that Deano had.
Yep.
And I remember sitting in art class with 5 guys or 6 guys, and they were arguing about who was the better vocalist. It was bordering just about on fisticuffs, because some guys were saying, Paul Deano, and a couple of other guys here saying Bruce, but me being the coward, I just sat on the sideline, just watching it all. But look, a heavily influential album for me. And I've got to do a shout out to a guy that who was a big part of my life back then, a guy called Garth Blomfield, who was an Iron Maiden nut. He got me into this album, so much so that he even made his leather wristband with studs on it, because you couldn't buy them back then.
No.
But one other point that I want to pass on too, we didn't know anything back then. Now, back in the olden days, guys, we didn't have the internet. Okay, so information was really, really hard to get hold of, Simon.
Yeah.
So we assumed that the band had sacked Paul Deano because Bruce Dickinson was so good. We had no idea that it was that it had everything to do with the fact that he couldn't function, that he was boozing and taking drugs and stuff. That didn't come out for a long, long time, so we just assumed that the band had kicked him. You're no good. This guy's better.
Well,
onwards
because,
and upwards.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but I think that they used to do, Samson and Iron Maiden used to run around the same kind of traps, right? And do gigs like on the same bill even. So they obviously were listening to each other play and sing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, for me, Iron Maiden, when I first heard them, I was in high school, and I was more into your blues rock, your classic rock stuff. I was nicknamed hippie at school because, I had long hair and used to listen to Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and The Doors and everything, and everyone was listening to all the classic stuff that was around at the time, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses and everything. And obviously I gravitated to that. Iron Maiden came a bit later for me, and I went backwards. I was more into Sabbath, like the early Sabbath, and then with the Dio years of Sabbath. And because of that, I gravitated to Iron Maiden because of the Dio sort of Sabbath sound. It had and I'll mention it in some of the track listings and that as we go through them. There's some similarities, not necessarily the same, but things that drew me to that British steel, British rock, British metal sort of sound. And I think Sabbath kind of did that a little bit. They started with Dio, they kind of went that direction a bit. And so for me, hearing this album was just being amongst all my mates, and my mate put on Run to the Hills, and I was just floored. Floored. And then obviously, I listened to the whole album, and it takes me back to about, I don't know, year 8, year 9 at high school when I first heard this. And it's I haven't listened to this record for a few years, I'll admit, because on this show we do our deep dives every week, and I focus on the music we're doing. So there's only so many hours in a day I've got. But when I put on music, it's not necessarily putting on Iron Maiden, but I remember, like, I don't know, Simon, you're a Melbourne guy as well, so there used to be a place called the Cat House, and then there was House of Rock, and like Maiden was staple in those things, and the amount of headbanging I did to Iron Maiden in those
at the cat house.
Yeah, the cat house, and that, you know, my neck used to be so sore the next day just from.
I love it. The cat house was kind of like, for anyone not in Melbourne, it was kind of like Melbourne's version of a Sunset Strip Club, right?
Yeah,
that was kind of the vibe.
Exactly, and I don't know if you ever went to House of Rock when that was up and running as well. That sort of had the same vibe to me. I played at House of Rock with my my Guns N' Roses tribute band there, and that felt like we were playing on the Sunset Strip. It felt like that sort of vibe, because every single person in there was wearing black T-shirts with their band names, long hair, and all time. So it was really cool. That whole era, it takes me back to that era when I listened to Maiden. And I've got to say, you know, if this stuff doesn't energize you, I don't know what will, because it makes you want to go like slam dance. It makes you want to break things, throw chairs. It's unreal. It's you know, makes you want to play guitar and just like chug along. You know,
absolutely. And like I was saying earlier, I think, and I know this also from my guitar students that are into rock, and not just back then, even like more recently, you know, the kids are digging back and finding that stuff. And what's great about it is it was hard and complex enough that it was interesting, but it wasn't so hard and complex that it was out of the realms of people having a go at it, you know? And I think that, especially as a guitarist, the fact that, you know, quite young, you can kind of strap on an electric guitar and a distortion pedal and kind of have a crack at Iron Maiden, it really does something to the blood, you know, and it makes you kind of, it amplifies your joy for music, because it lets you think that, you know, if I keep working at this, I could actually play like this one day, you know. And I know that's what it did for me, and I can see that it happens with other people too. And I think that's just such a wonderful thing that it's music that is, I mean, look, all the guys in Iron Maiden are incredible players, but they write the songs in such a way that it makes playing the riffs accessible, you know. And I just think that's a massive part of why they're so popular, you know, because you've got all these, you know, all these rock and metal instrumentalists, whether it's drums, bass, guitar, around the world, all cutting their teeth on Iron Maiden songs, you know, because it's at that level where it's right in the middle, you know, to be able to play technically, and it gives you that sense of joy straight away as soon as you start, as you're saying, Brad, the you know, and you're like, right, okay, I can do this with a bit more work, no problem, you know. And really, you know, if we want to, even while we're talking about guitars, if you guys don't mind me just going off on a tangent, you know, Dave and Adrian, their solos, I mean, I really love their solos, and when I listen to them still, even though I've listened to a billion other things since then, and, you know, I studied jazz at college, and I did all these other things, and all of that is just really to say that I don't listen back to it and go, oh, well, I can see why I liked it when I was younger. But it's like, man, and those guys are great players, but also what I liked about the solos, and again, which made it fun to try and learn how to play them, is they're basically just blues solos, you know, like a lot of that stuff. It's just that in the context of the Iron Maiden production, they don't really sound bluesy. They sound like heavy metal. But truthfully, if you strip that away from it, and like if you could find the isolated tracks of those solos, man, they're just great blues licks. You know?
I was just about to say that. I wish we could find the isolated tracks, because I don't want to give too much away about my notes here, but there's one song in particular where you could almost be forgiven if you thought it was like Slash playing on it, or like very blues orientated classic rock stylings rather than your metal styling. So I agree with you 100%. 100%. Yeah.
I just want to do one quick little shout out, guys, if that's okay. So,
hey, Andrew, while you're doing that, can I just duck off for 1 second while you're doing that?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I don't know, Brad, if you guys in Australia have this term, or the cats in Canada or the States that are watching in the chat, but here in New Zealand we have a term called bogan. Now, bogans were generally working class kind of guys, and when I was a bogan around the same time that this album was released, the music that we were listening to was, heavy metal. It became associated with working class kind of guys. Now, didn't bash anybody, didn't do any public damage or anything like that, drank some beer, got into a couple of fights with each other, but it was just, Brad, it was just about forming that gang of just listening to music. That's what I remember. And a friend of mine, I'm going to put a link in here, a friend of mine got a doctorate about 8 years ago, and he did a doctorate on bogans and wrote a lot about how this music was the mainstay, the artistic background, the artistic foundation for a lot of guys when they were growing up, who incidentally, Brad, went on to be quite successful. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting when I think of this music. And we talk about this on the Sunday show a lot. It puts you back into a period of time where you go, oh shit, yeah, I remember that. But yeah, I remember being Brad just in a gang with guys like you talking about before, being in the cat house, seeing who could head bang the fastest. It's one of the great things, isn't it, about music? If you're not playing it or you can't play it, it's still an opportunity for other guys just to jump in and have a good time and just get drunk.
The bogan term is big in Australia as well.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the bogan term is big in Australia. And being a metalhead, yes, you were a bogan if you were a metalhead, basically. If you wore black jeans, if you wore black jeans and a black t-shirt with a band on the front and flannelette shirt sometimes, and I've forgotten the boots, what they used to wear, Johnny Rebs
Doc
and
Martens.
Like
Doc Martens or
Hey, Brad,
yeah.
do you remember battle jackets?
Yes.
Did you have those in New Zealand, Andrew? Battle jackets?
Yeah, the World War II battle, the army jackets.
Yeah, they were kind of like a dark army green. I guess they used to get them at like army disposal stores, but then they'd put studs and back patches and shit. Yeah, you got them. Is that what you called them, or did you call them something else?
BD jackets. Yep.
What did you call them?
BD jackets. Battle jackets. Yep.
BD jackets. Yeah, we call them battle jackets. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, was there maybe an equivalent thing in the States? I have no idea. But it seemed to be a pretty global sort of phenomenon back then with heavy metal bands, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it was just, it was commonly seen. And that's the thing, Andrew, you mentioned before, a lot of this stuff at this particular time, we didn't have the internet. So when we weren't looking this stuff up, it just became like a bit of a universal thing, really, through the bands, the music, and the images that were portrayed in the magazines and in their clips, and everyone just wanted to be part of it. It was like an army.
Yeah. It was a movement. It really was a movement, wasn't it? It was more than just the music. It was a scene, and I guess it, especially in Australia, with the bogans, as we call them. And I would have to say I was probably one of those for a while. But it made you. You felt like you belonged to a club, of like-minded people.
Yeah, and that classic albums documentary that you fired through to me that you mentioned before, I will mention this. They do bring that up a little bit in that documentary, and if you haven't seen it, like Simon said before, I think it's mandatory for everyone to watch that. All the classic album ones are great, but the Iron Maiden ones are fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. If there's anyone in the chat that hasn't seen the classic albums, Number of the Beast, like I said, it only goes for 45 minutes, so it doesn't require like a big commitment, but it's so fascinating, and it goes into all those behind-the-scenes stories. And one of them, of course, as you guys would know, is that the very famous Bruce Dickinson scream at the start of the Number of the Beast song, which I think is like from in all the polls around the world, gets ranked as one of the #1 heavy metal screams of all time, right? Is that still? Yeah.
I still think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and so he had Martin Birch, the producer, just absolutely busting his chops like for half a day, because Martin understood that those first kind of softly like whispered spoken vocals, those first 4 lines are so important because it sets up the mood of the whole song, right? And obviously they decided to call the album title that as well. And And so anyway, so they were spending like, I think it was 4 or 5 hours just on those 4 lines, and Bruce Dickinson was just ready to throw shit through the glass, you know. And he was at his wit's end. And in Bruce's book, I don't know if anyone's read that, but that's a good read too, because he's quite an eloquent, sort of well-spoken. You know, he explains his life like really interestingly. One of the side stories that's not in the Classic Albums documentary is that I think most of the other guys had already left the studio. So that to add to his frustration, they'd all gone to the pub for dinner or something, or to have a beer, and left him there with the producer, who was just busting his balls the whole time, you know. And anyway, so after about 4 or 5 hours, Bruce is like, "So do we have it? Do we have it now? You know, can I go?" And he's like, "Yeah, we just need the scream." He goes, "So give me the scream, and then you can go." And that's why that scream, he said, just came from that. He just wanted to kill the producer, and that's the sound of that scream. And apparently that was the first scream. He just gave it everything, like he wanted to throttle him. And then Martin said, "Okay, I think we got it."
I love that story. That's so cool.
But, you know, I mean, music history is littered with great stories of producers that pushed the artist so hard that it ended up getting an incredible performance, but the performance was like subconsciously out of frustration, you know. You know, so yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, some great stories in that Classic Albums doco for sure.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. What else was I going to say about that? There's what's John saying? Oh yeah, right. Okay, there you go. 4 times longer, John says. Yeah, actually, John knows all the details. So thanks for dropping in, John. That's awesome.
Thank you, John. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's. If you guys are okay, I'm itching to get into the tracks.
Yep.
Let's do that. I'm good for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me kick off with the first track, Invaders, then. I got to be honest, it was never my favorite track on the record. And back then when I was young, I didn't really know why. I probably couldn't have put it into words very well. I can now, though. And I just think, like I said, because I grew up listening to FM radio so much, it was just I had a very pop sensibility about how chorus should be. So even if it's heavy metal, and I don't care, even if it's Meshuggah, if the chorus is strong, it doesn't have to be like Mariah Carey pop, but it just had, for me, I like a strong chorus, you know. And to me, Invaders, it had that weird key change and then just going up and down scales. So it was like Invaders, Invaders, and it was, to me, it didn't feel like a chorus. It felt like a pre-chorus maybe, or something like that. But anyway, so that's just me. But the thing is, now I'm so used to the album starting with that song that when I hear that riff and those snare drum accents and I actually couldn't imagine the album starting any other way. Like, that juices me up. When I hear that, I just go, here we go. Yeah, this is, you know. Yep. But yet, by the time the song's finished, I sort of always felt just a bit unfulfilled. I don't know. I just wanted the hookier chorus or something, I guess. Nevertheless, great song. The guitar solos are very cool in it. I really do love, actually, one of my favorite parts of the song is when they go into that sort of second wave of guitar solo, which they do a lot, which I really like. And quite often what they'll do is they'll have Dave Murray solo first, and then they won't just go straight to Adrian Smith soloing. There'll be another little interlude section, like it'll sort of change gears a bit so that the second solo comes in with some punch rather than just sort of, you know,
crossing over.
Butting up against each other with the two solos. And I think that was always really smart, because a lot of other bands with two guitarists, one guy solos and then straight away the other guy solos.
Correct.
And I think like having that little musical section that they always put in, whether it was 8 bars or whatever, of like some drum accents and a different kind of chord progression, just means that when the second solo comes in, kind of has an equal feeling to when the first solo comes in. And they did that a lot. And I think that was really clever and really smart. And not a lot of other bands actually did that. It seems like an obvious thing to do, but they were one of the few that consistently did that. But anyway, so in Invaders, that second it's got that. It's got some licks and then it goes and so it's got all these drum accents and stuff. And my favorite part of the song is that second solo with all those drum accents and stuff. I just think it's such a great sounding gear change. I just wish it came out of it to a bit of a stronger chorus, because then it just goes back to invaders, it's just, I don't know. I just always found that a bit twee or something. I don't know, but that's just me. But great. Look, like I said, now though, it'd be so super weird if the album didn't start with that song and that So yeah, I'm just used to it now. And I actually quite like it. The other thing is, when I was at that age trying to learn the riffs, I didn't realize that they were using open strings in the main verse hook. And of course, I would have been even more horrified if I realized that the bass player wrote it, because I couldn't even play it on guitar, because I was trying to play it as like a pentatonic scale. It was really tricky. I just wish that someone had said, no, open strings, but anyway, it's never too late, right?
Never.
There you go. What do you guys think?
Have you got a ranking for it? You want to give us a ranking?
Yeah, I'll give you a ranking. So out of 10,
just remember 6. Ooh. You could be timed out here, Simon.
No, I'll give it. Okay.
Just think about it this way: rank. Give us your ranking as if you're listening to the album in the context of the record. How you rank the song. That's the best way to put it. Yeah,
no, I can't. So I'm confident with my 6.
All right.
I feel I'll get 6 or a 7, around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just a word of warning. Anything 6 or under, you potentially get timed out.
I get timed out.
Well, whoever does, like
really. Okay, so hang on. So this is probably right. I haven't done a ranking show with you guys before, so give me the rules now so I don't mess it up.
Yeah, we should have probably pointed those rules out to you.
Yeah, you should have. But that's okay.
It is a host takeover, so we thought we'd just go with it. But the rules.
No. I'm happy to play by the rules still. I don't want to get the ball and not know the rules. So
if you rank something that the other co-hosts are not happy with, you get timed out.
So all right. So
all right. So that's the
obviously. Obviously, both of you guys feel that 6 is unfair for invaders, right? Okay, maybe it's unfair. 7. I'll give it a 7.
It's your ranking, mate. We're not telling you what to do. We're not peer pressure or bullying you into this. It's
actually. I can see John's comment there. John, you're totally right. Really, my favorite part of the song always is the verses. And it's unusual. Normally, somebody's favorite part of the song is the choruses, right? Mm-hmm. And the verse is just kind of the storytelling leading up to the chorus. I actually think in Invaders, it's all about the verses. You're right. So maybe I'm just sort of looking at it wrong. But I'm just saying that with my 11-year-old brain that I guess has still somewhere in there when I first heard it, I was just like, yeah, the riffs are cool. I just didn't really quite get the payoff. So I'll give it a 7, as much as I can give it.
6.5 or 7 is fine. I think just
thanks, Chris.
Just he always gets timed out. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Andrew's been timed out a few times, and I've definitely been timed out.
But hang on, but you get timed out if both you guys disagree, right? If one person disagrees, that's not a timeout, right?
Well, it's Andrew. You're the leader here. You pull rank, mate.
Let him fall into his own traps, mate.
All right.
Hey, be nice.
Let's move on.
Man,
it's just a bit of fun. We're gonna have rules in these games, and that's how it is. So. Look, I tend to agree with you to a bit there, Hoss. I'm a song guy, and a lot of the previous episodes on different albums, especially, I always look for a hook in a song. I always look for something that takes me, and gives me depth to the song rather than just being I see music in colors. So I like a good hook and I like a good chorus to pull me in. And it doesn't matter if it's a pop song, a rock song, or a metal song. I like that. But yep. I'm going to say basically when I first got this LP, I used to skip this track. I used to skip it, but the
Oh,
more I
skip.
got, yeah, the
So
more I
hang on.
got.
You can't give me a timeout for marking it a 6 or a 7, but when you skipped it completely.
No. I'm just giving you a because I skipped to the songs I knew. That's what.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. All right.
Okay. As time went on, and I'm trying to explain this, I started to get used to the other songs, and obviously they became familiar. And this one always lacked a bit of a hook for me, but
yeah,
you know, I have to say when the song starts, you know they mean business, and that's a really great way to start an album if you're looking at it from that sense.
I totally agree. Yeah, that intro is tough, and it definitely tells you we mean business, no doubt about it. Yeah,
and I mean it's an insane intro. Those stabs, you know, the insane bass. It kind of, the riff kind of reminded me of, and forgive me if this ruins it for you or not, reminds me of Deep Purple's Lady Double Dealer off Stormbringer. If you go back and listen to that riff, you'll hear a similarity there. I don't know if that was unintentional or not, but for me,
you know what, I have no doubt that Steve wouldn't have tried to rip it, but you know, he would have grown up listening to that. So yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Obviously ripped off without knowing it. I mean, Bruce Dickinson, he's singing on its next level. I mean, there's no pitchy vocals; it's all class. There's no such thing back then as, you know, fixing vocals. It was just like, go redo it if it wasn't right, you know. So
honestly, that pre-chorus or bridge, whatever you want to call it, right? That Bruce is singing in that is nuts. So if the toughness of those accents and snare drum, the military sort of, you know, all that stuff at the beginning wasn't enough to go, okay, they mean business. Then when it shifts, it kind of modulates for the pre-chorus and it goes even higher. And then Bruce Dickinson is singing and he's going, "You're gonna run an attack," and then he goes up to a third higher. No. You're just like, oh, now you're just showing off, you know. And I do love that. Like it's full of energy. I agree. It's full of energy. Yeah.
I mean, look, without touching on everything you have, I mean, the solos, the interludes between the solos, I love that. You know, and I love how, like, straight after the solos, they're straight back into it, and the song finishes. Yeah, so I love that. And for me, I gave the song an 8 out of 10. It energizes me, it gets me ready for the rest of the record, and you know, it's killer for me. But that's this is the beautiful thing. We're all got different opinions.
We're in the ballpark. I gave it 7. You gave it 8. That's close enough. I think it's when, you know, one of us is giving it 10 and the other one's giving it 4. Then we're in trouble. Then we've got to talk about that.
When it's that contrasty, it's like someone's going to get timed out. All right.
But 7 and 8, that's close enough. Yeah.
Look, okay. I got to agree with you guys. I never liked the opening track musically when I first heard it. It's a little bit odd for a beginner on a great album, on an album that they hope to make a stamp on the musical landscape. There are a couple of things though that we really, really liked, and that the song gave us some hints. Obviously, the storytelling. Now, we've been listening to Led Zeppelin for a couple of years, guys. We've been listening to Black Sabbath. So, you know, one of the attacks that people would give towards bogans who listen to this kind of music without actually listening to it, they wouldn't actually understand that there's storytelling that's going on in these lyrics. It's great, you know. And John's already said it in the chat. My co-hosts have already mentioned it. You know, there's a great story going on. So that caught us. That's the thing. You know, the music behind the song, not their best. You know, it gets better and better. But look, it's sometimes a skip. It has been sometimes a skip. Interesting song for an album opener. I wouldn't have picked it myself, but look, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, and still a sometimes skip. Hoss and Brad.
Okay, there you go.
We're all in the ballpark, which is good.
Yep,
it's a good start.
Jeez, you can't time out me when you guys are skipping it completely. Come on.
Sometimes.
I never skip it now, but back in the day I used to skip it. Anyway,
okay.
Move on.
So sometimes a skip. I don't think. Okay, so for me, I'd say I'd never skip it. It just, like I said, I just never really the song had finished. I felt like the chorus never quite arrived, but it's tough as nails. And like I said, I love that solo section with all those drum accents. I think that's like one of the bit of the song that really fires me up. And none of the other songs have that. So it's unique to Invaders, you know, so I like it. I definitely think it has its place. I agree with Andrew. I think, I don't know if I would have opened an album with it. That's because, you know what though? It's all relative. It's because all the other songs are so damn strong that I think like if the songs on the whole record weren't strong, like if they were different songs than they put on, then great, open their album with Invaders, no problem. But the others are so hooky, you know. Obviously you don't want to give away one of your strongest songs right at the start of an album, but I don't know, maybe other bands have done it. That's like maybe it's not like a live gig, like it doesn't matter, like it's still on the album, right? So anyway, I don't know. Okay, so what's next? Children of the Damned?
Yeah, baby.
Wow, what a song. I mean, that slow kind of halftime feeling chorus in that is all those just like those. You've got this halftime dun ba da gun gun ba da da da, and then you got these like double time tom fills. Man, that's a good, like when you're in a mood and you're home alone and you just crank that through the stereo, and if you know my neighbors will hear me just screaming "Children of the Damned," you know. Man, that's a tough song. That's geez, I almost argue, why wouldn't you have just started the album with that? You know, because you've got that slow, melancholy kind of plucking intro, but then it just comes in hard as nails. You know, it's like a great juxtaposition. It's funny, you know. I actually hear a lot of Skid Row. Sorry, other way around. I hear a lot of Maiden influence in Skid Row, and I don't know if that's right or not. Yeah. I've never read that anywhere, but I do hear it. I also hear it especially in Sebastian Bach's voice. I hear some Bruce Dickinson influence. And I think that actually, like, if you think of Children of the Damned, if you know any of the Skid Row stuff much, that intro sounds exactly like a Skid Row song, you know, which came obviously like, 6-7 years later maybe or something. But, yeah, I just think that's what I meant to say, what reminded me of Skid Row. That Children of the Damned, the way it starts all kind of like melancholy and quiet like that, and then it just comes in tough. It's almost like what Skid Row did with Monkey Business when they started their second album like that, you know. But Children of the Damned, great song. I don't know if I can say that one. I'm going to give it 9. I'm going to save my 10s where I know they're going to go. So I'll give that. Don't get me wrong. It's as good. I'll give it a 9.5, but I'm saving my 10s for real 10s for me, you know.
I agree with you there, Hoss. Like that sort of like little beautiful arpeggiated sort of intro. It's beautiful.
It's so cool. And actually, it's almost disarmingly sweet for a band like that, right? This is what I was talking about before. What really drew me, even as a young teenager, to Iron Maiden, it was melodic. It wasn't just, you know. And I just like that they could have those quiet moments is fantastic. So sorry, go on.
No, I agree, and that was even highlighted in that classic albums thing. That you know for a band like that to have this sort of a song on the album was fantastic. A bit of color. You know, the bass playing, great playing by the whole band. It's very dynamic. It's got some mellow vibes, and Bruce sings marvelously on it.
So good. So good.
Yeah, and you know, all through the album, he's just, I mean, for his first album with Iron Maiden, it's pretty remarkable.
Talk about making a stamp, right? Coming in as the new singer.
Coming in as the new guy and wiping the floor, you know, just unbelievable.
Wiping the floor, and not just with their, you know, metaphorically their previous singer, but wiping the floor with pretty much anyone in British heavy metal at that time, you know. Just
without a doubt, probably
ridiculous.
one of the most elite singers at that time, in my opinion.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
The chorus, you know, Bruce is singing off the register. You know, look. I love that harmonized dual solo sort of section as well. Look, I gave the song a 9 out of 10, and it's fantastic, Andrew.
Oh, look, I'm going to agree with the comment here that Trevor O'Regan has put in. You know, the album starts for me with Children of the Damned. I just think the way that the song starts off, the flavors, you know, that acoustic thing, we all loved that. We weren't familiar. We weren't alien to that, weren't we? You know, we'd been schooled in hearing that kind of approach to a lot of heavy metal and hard rock albums. So, you know, it wasn't completely strange. But then when it blows into the section where it counts, look, I love it. I'm going to give this song a 10 out of 10. For me, it was just put a big smile on my face after listening to the first track. And I think I was a confirmed fan after Hoss and Brad listening to this song. I was glowing. And I'm going to tell you one other little thing too before I pass it back on to Hoss. I think one of the reasons too why Iron Maiden had space in between the two guitar solos, they're very clever band. And I can't prove this, but I remember arguing about this with some of my friends. The reason why they did that is they wanted to make the two guitarists independent within the band. Dave Murray and Adrian Smith.
Yeah.
You know, it was really important that they had their opportunities in the song because for me, so besides arguing about, you know, who was the better lead singer, my friends and I were arguing who, you know, so we loved
who was the better
band.
guitarist? Yeah.
But who was the better, you know, was it Adrian Smith or Dave Murray? Yeah, you know, man, so I'm just going to do something a little bit cheeky and rude here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to do this, but
do it.
That was the guy playing those mate. Oh, sorry.
Why is that cheeky? It's all right.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So for me, this song just stamped it in the back of my consciousness. Hoss and Brad.
Go on.
10 out of 10. Never.
Okay. The only reason I give it a 9 out of 10 is because they should have started the record with it, and I would have given it a 10 out of 10.
Good point. And yeah, again, so stop reading my notes because that's yeah, because they should have absolutely 100% should have started.
It's actually, you know, like I don't want to bash on Invaders because we've all just discussed that it now just we're so used to it that we couldn't imagine the album starting a different way. But I just think like if you were back then and making those decisions, I just find that a strange choice to open the record with. So open it with Children of the Damned. Why not? Because you get this false sense of security. You know, you get lulled into like someone's going to put it on going, oh, Iron Maiden have gone soft since Killers, you know? And then all of a sudden you're going to go, you know, and it's just going to launch in. And then you got Bruce going, Rah! And I just think, you know, and also what people do is they're going to turn their stereo or their headphones way up because the intro is so quiet and then just get assaulted. And that, I just think that would have been a great way to start the record. And people go, oh, wow, the stereo is way too loud, you know? So, yeah. All right. So what do we got next? We got Acacia Avenue. Is it The Prisoner next? I forget.
The Prisoner. Prisoner, yeah.
Okay. Good. This is another really strong song, I think. Like, really, I got to say, the album doesn't have many weak songs, which is why I'm happy to score something a bit less because I know it isn't going to happen much. That's why, you know, it's not because the joy of being brutal. It's just because I know that it's such a great record. All the tracks are so strong. Yeah, I really like this one. I think that especially there's something about the solos in this one that I think have a bit of extra magic. You know how you sort of imagine that. Well, I mean, I just know for myself, some days in the studio, you have a great day. Some days you do everything the same. You wake up at the same time in the morning. You have the same cup of tea or coffee. You do everything the same. And there's no lightning there, you know? And I just think with The Prisoner, some of the playing on that, I just kind of feel like they were in the zone when they tracked that, you know? And for anyone that's not as familiar with the album, just a little bit of backstory is that Steve Harris a lot would write lyrics by choosing a topic or a subject. And quite often it would be based on something that he grew up with as a kid, you know? And so he used to watch the TV show The Prisoner, which was mid-60s, if I recall. British, yeah, like a sort of a spy, like a James Bondy thing, right? Mid-60s. And so it was based on that. So that's why you hear that lift from the movie, which is the dialogue at the start of the track, is actually they got approval to use some of that. So that's what that is. But yeah, very solid. I think I'm going to give that one also. I'm going to give that a 9. Prisoner's a 9 for me.
I think.
Thank you, Christopher. Awesome, brother.
Yeah, look, I have to agree. I mean, I love that intro. It's iconic.
Yeah,
it
really is.
With their chordal work at the start, it kicks in. This is where I think it sounds very similar to like Dio era of Black Sabbath. To me, it's got a bit of that feel for it. I mean, how good is Steve Harris on bass in this track? Like
nuts. Yeah. I mean, he's great on everything, but especially in this. I'll tell you something about Steve Harris, if I can interrupt really quickly. When I was younger, you know, he quite often goes higher up on the bass and he plays like an inversion of the chord. He doesn't play the low root note. When I was younger, my ears weren't as attuned to that because it's a less strong feeling sonically. So I didn't always really like it. But I didn't understand why I didn't like it. Now I love it because I think it's so adventurous and unique of a bass player to start playing up and playing inversions of the chord. I actually find it, he's almost like a third guitarist, and I think it's really musical. But yeah, so his bass playing on this track though, Brad, is killer. Yeah.
I mean, it adds color to the song the way he plays. Though it's not necessarily like he's trying to shine and be the standout. He's just adding color, but it works so beautifully. You know, catchy chorus, nice backing vocals. You know, it's funny. You don't really hear a lot of BVs except in some key points of the song. There's actually
there's almost no BVs generally with Iron Maiden. The exceptions would be this and maybe Run to the Hills.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And
I admire that because that's sort of gutsy as well.
It's a bold move because a lot of people even double track vocals, you know.
And they didn't with Bruce, did they?
He was just
So imagine that. So your vocals on the whole song, even though you're trying to make it wide and loud and tough, and is one vocal. I just think that's ballsy.
That's very ballsy, but he had the voice to be able to do that, I guess.
True. True.
You know, the solo section's like a journey in this song. It takes you to somewhere else. I love the playing. Honestly, I can hear where guys like Slash and Joe Perry and all these other classic rock guitarists draw a lot of inspiration from. You know, I can hear, you know, there was a particular part of one of the solos there where I thought it could quite easily have been Slash playing that. It just sounded like, you know.
Do you mean that first solo, Brad? That's like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it could be. Actually, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if Slash listened to these guys.
I'm sure I'm sure they were an influence, 100%. Look, I have to say, I mean, this track doesn't disappoint. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, Andrew.
Oh, look, I love the song. It's a good middle song between the song we've just discussed and the song that we're going to discuss. I always thought this was an interesting song because of the lyrics, and I got the vibe early on because of Mr. Lovell, our English teacher. And at the same time, I think when this album came out, we were reading Orwell's 1984. And so I picked up heavily some political messages from this song. I couldn't articulate them back then, but
Yeah.
You know, there was something, and I think John's mentioned in the chat here something about being, you know, trapped in society. And when you're, you know, a young cat, you know, and even old cats like us, gosh, we're trapped in society now, you know. So
yeah, right. Now we really are prisoners.
Yeah. To different degrees. So so look, the song had some resonance back then, and gosh, it's got some resonance back now. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Never a skip, but one of the things, Hoss, that we love doing on these shows is you know, and we've identified it with the opening track. You know, that was a strange choice, but it's really good to go back and listen to an album, and you can see that they've picked this song in between two songs, you know, because you got to be able to do that. You sometimes troughs and peaks, you know. So I'm still going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Me too, 9 out of 10. And I got to say, like we were discussing earlier, like the chorus in The Prisoner is the classic example of that pop power chorus, you know, that Maiden were capable of. That not a prisoner. I mean, that could almost be a modern Nashville song if you think about it. That chorus, you know, not a prisoner, I'm a free man, you know, and my blood is my own now. You know, that could just be like anyone, you know. So that's what they were good at. They were doing those pop, and that gave me all those payoffs. The Prisoner gave me the tick, and of course, like we were talking about before with the guitar solos, you know, that classic breakdown arpeggio kind of Iron Maiden thing. They did that a lot, you know, the two guitars, so they'd go those used to get me excited because you knew something was about to just erupt, because you knew that wasn't really the solo, that was like just this instrumentally kind of bit, and then they were going to like take off and someone would just start ripping, you know, just pulling out all their blues licks. And so yeah, that's I think The Prisoner has all those elements to it. It's got the big chorus, very sweet and poppy sounding, but, you know, against the double track hard guitars and Clive's drumming, it just sounds great.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So no, yeah, nine. So it's 9s all around. Is that right for that one?
Yeah,
correct.
9s all around. Okay. I mean, the more I think about it and listening to you two guys talk about it, and you know, you start hear the chorus again, you go, pretty mean to not really give it. It's a pretty good song. It's mean to not give it a 10, but you know, probably got to leave ourselves somewhere to go. But so 22 Acacia Avenue. Okay. Geez, this one might be pushing for a 10 from me. I got to say, if I'm going to leave my 10s for somewhere, this is going to be pretty close. I like the backstory too, because if maybe John in the chat might be able to correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but I believe that it was this main song ideas and riffs came from Adrian Smith from when he was much younger, before he joined Maiden, when he was like 18 years old.
First song he ever wrote, I think.
Okay, there you go, Brad. Yeah, first song he ever wrote, or at least elements of it. We know that once he would have brought it to Steve Harris, they would have all, like, you know, shaped it together. But yes, that initial thing. And also on one of the earlier Iron Maiden records, and I forget whether it was this self-titled or Killers, Dave Murray wrote a song called Charlotte the Harlot. And I believe that what they tried to do was take some of the ideas from Dave Murray's Charlotte the Harlot and marry them with Adrian Smith's ideas for basically a similar kind of thing about a call girl, right? That supposedly lived on Acacia Avenue, and then marry them. And obviously then Steve Harris would have built the framework, the Iron Maiden Steve Harris framework around those song ideas. But hey TJ, yeah, yes, I agree. I think Acacia Avenue is the best song out of the Charlotte trilogy as well. I think that's it's so strong, and that's why for me, I think it's like pushing for a 10, because I mean, all those, you know, those time changes and feels in there. So they got 22. I mean, that's, you know, it's sort of like a halftime thing. And then it's got like Iron Maiden, the way they could just shift gears in the middle of one song, I always loved about them, probably more than other 80s rock and hard rock and metal bands is that they didn't do as many gear shifts within one song, whereas Maiden were just shameless about it. They were like, oh, we just feel like we're going to just go into a whole different tempo, a whole different key, and take you on a journey. So, and that's why, you know, we were talking the other week about how no one listens to albums from front to back anymore, because the album is deliberately shaped like a musical experience. It's about 45 minutes, which is a good human attention span. And, you know, it should take you on a ride. And I think that what Iron Maiden did is they actually almost condensed that ride within one song.
Correct.
You know, so you'd have these time change feels, you'd have these dynamic changes, you'd have these key changes, and you'd have a bit that was like somber and halftime, and then it would like go into this crazy double time, and they'd get, you know, in Acacia Avenue, then when it goes into double time, even like the lyrics and the way Bruce is singing, he's more aggressive now. And the first bit is about her story, and then the second bit is about him, like as, say, her mate or whatever, telling her, you've got to get out of this life. And he's sort of chastising her, you know? And that, and I just think that that's, to have all of that in one song, it's actually kind of very prog rock, you know? Although I don't really classify Maiden as prog at all, but there's seedlings of it, you know, because you can see that the way that they, you know, go through a journey within one song is a very prog sort of thing to do. But yeah, right. I'm going to give it. Can I split between 9 and 10? Do you guys do decimals?
Yep.
I'm going to give this 9.5 for sure. A comfortable 9.5.
Comfortable?
Oh yeah, like at least.
Well, for me,
hey, Jay Hannon in the house.
I've always loved this song. You know, I don't want to touch too much on what you've already spoken about, Simon, but that chugging chord, so catchy. Bruce sings the crap out of the choruses in this. The bass and drums are just locked in. Love that middle section, you know. I love the halftime solo section as well. Some classic guitar playing. And, you know, the rhythm section is really holding this one down. I might spoil this for you guys, though, moving forward, and I apologize. Someone brought this up to me a long time ago, that the start of the song reminds them of Rocky Horror Picture Show's, you know, it's astounding, time is fleeting, you know, that sort of the time warp. Whatever
okay.
Yeah,
I can kind of see that.
And now every time I hear the start of that, I can't stop thinking, it's astounding. Time is fleeting, you know. So that,
it's that, isn't it? Yeah.
I hope that doesn't spoil the song for you guys, but for me,
now I can't listen to it anymore. Now I'm going to hear the time warp.
Well, someone did it to me, so I have to do it to other people. It's releasing it, you know. It does. But for me, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Andrew.
Okay.
So this is the last song on the album, and John ZD 351, he's taken a box of 24 VBs to a mate's place, and he's had 6 VBs while he's listened to the album so far.
Really?
Yeah, and he's I don't know. I'm just painting a picture here. So he's walking up. He's walking up to the stereo after he's, you know, after you know, getting ready to change the record over. This song's given you a nice little glow on. You got a nice buzz. I love this song. It's a great ending for side 1, because when you flip the album back over to side 2, you're in for a whole new journey. So look, I love the song too. I think it's a clever song. It's beautiful. I'm not going to repeat what my co-hosts have said. And intelligence, there's some intelligence, and I think that's one of the great things when I went and listened to this album over the last couple of days, guys. You know, smart guys. You know, besides
Very
sounding
smart.
good. Sounding good and great, the lyrics. You know, I'm just in awe of it. Look, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 as well. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. And
never a skip.
And John Z 351's, still he's on his 7th can of VB. So get ready. Get ready for side 2, guys.
Yep. Good. You hook in there, John. John's a legend, another Melbourne boy. As I've come to know. And actually, I'd like to shout out to Keith as well. Big hugs to you, brother. I know you've been going through a bit of a tough time. So, yeah, shout out to Keith. And Jay, who's in the chat now. Thanks for joining in, brother. Legend. And, yeah, love me some Maiden too. I was saying earlier that I sort of cut my teeth on those Maiden power chord riffs, because it was a good sort of entry into the more complex rock that we all sort of ended up delving into. But it was, it was really
somewhere.
Yeah. No, that's right. And, I feel funny saying it because it feels like I'm saying it was simple stuff. It's definitely not simple stuff. It was tough, but all I'm saying is it was just accessible enough. Whereas everything else, like, all our other guitar heroes, it was, that's just Martian kind of stuff, Yep. Whereas the Maiden boys were like, okay, yeah, I can do some work on this. So I guess that brings us, doesn't it, Andrew, to the track of the hour, which is the title track of the record. Although I think, correct me if I'm wrong, on your YouTube channel, someone spoiled it by adding a subscription. So now show's cancelled. That's it. Off. Thanks, everyone. Good night. Yeah. Sorry. Good night.
We're bailing now. That's it.
We're bailing now because we've got more than 666 subscribers. By the way, if there's anyone, I know there's some friends of mine in the chat that probably aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you haven't, please do. We're going to get up to 1,000 in what's the goal? What's the timeline?
End of the year.
End of the year, 1,000. Okay, good. Let's do it. Let's totally do it. All right. Number of the Beast. Well, okay. Let's just start by saying the Vincent Price intro, Unreal, that Quincy and Michael Jackson totally ripped for Thriller, I'll say. But that's okay. Someone's got to pave the way and be a trailblazer. Man, 666, Number of the Beast. I'm going to score it first and then circle my way back, if that's all right, gents. Are we allowed to do that, or do we have to save the score to the end?
No, we do that. Yeah, that's fine.
Man, wow. I mean, if we're going to pay out on them for how they started the record with Invaders, you cannot pay out on them for how they start side B of the record. Wow. It's a solid 10 for me, Number of the Beast. And actually, there's been a lot of artists that have sort of taken their inspiration for their big, big, big hit singles from Number of the Beast. And so it's like a very important song in terms of that. Like, for example, when Dave Grohl did put the Foo Fighters together, was their first single Monkey Wrench? Was that the first one? Does anyone know?
Yes, I think it was.
You know the one, right? Don't want to be a monkey. Now, albeit the chords are a little different and obviously the lyrics are different, but if you think about that tempo and that beat and those guitars and the way that the vocals keep anticipating and pushing, Monkey Wrench is basically Number of the Beast. So if you're thinking 1, 2, 3, for don't want to be a monkey wrench, so everything's pushing, and that's just 6, 6, 6. The Number of the Beast. It's really different words, but the way that everything is syncopated and pushing is exactly Number of the Beast. So, and that's okay. It's not the same song at all. So I'm not trying to say that Dave Grohl's ripped it or anything. I'm just saying that the inspiration for all those big hit singles from that pop punk era, that sort of post Nirvana sort of thing, that feel, that really fast and syncopation is, I mean, Iron Maiden did it in 82, and that was Number of the Beast, Yep. I don't know what else can I say. It's I love it. I think that the solos in this song are especially awesome. And I love how they do that classic Iron Maiden, what I call the gear change, the gear shift, So we modulate straight away into that first solo of Dave's, So, changes key and then all those great Dave Murray blues licks, which, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, Dave Murray didn't always do the first solo, but more often than not on those albums back then, he did. And even if he didn't, the reason you can tell them apart very clearly is because Dave Murray always had a phase 90 on his solo sound and Adrian Smith didn't. So Adrian Smith had the more direct, cutting, sort of gritty, cranked Marshall sound. And Dave Murray had that, but with a very slow sweep phase 90. So not unlike what Eddie was doing, but it's funny because it doesn't sound to me like Eddie at all, even though it's a phase 90 and a Marshall. It should, right? It should sound like, obviously his hands are different and the licks are different, but I mean like the tone was the same elements. It was the same ingredients of the pudding. It should really sound, but even to my ears now, it almost doesn't sound like a phase 90. It sounds more like a kind of a chorus to me, if I had to say. Nevertheless, yeah, so that first solo, Number of the Beast, Dave Murray comes in with that, that classic Dave Murray sound with his phase 90 on. And I just love that key change and that gear shift in there. And I just think the whole song is tough. It doesn't let up. It doesn't have some of those things the other Maiden songs do, where they go into a halftime breakdown and it goes on a journey. No, this is just beast, 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 beast the whole time, and 10 out of 10 for me. What a way to start side B when you turn the record, right? You're just okay, let's go. Yeah.
Look, I can't agree with you more there, Hoss. I think the first single TJ just noticed it was "This Is a Call" was Foo Fighters' first one, but yeah, we're off on a tangent there. But the Number of the Beast, man, what a song! That iconic intro, like you mentioned, love it.
Yep.
The build up, the Bruce's scream, his vocal delivery is next level on this song. I've headbanged to this song at just about every metal rock club through Melbourne, like we mentioned before. It's the guitars are killer, the bass playing is next level.
Oh man, it's just an onslaught, isn't it?
It's an onslaught, and the song has tangents, like you mentioned, or sections that were up and down, key changes, so well written, so well pieced together and arranged.
I agree.
The bass solo always stood out for me as being like the perfect bass guitar solo for a rock song. The do like that sort of thing. It's just like it's just.
Do you mean that bit that leads into the solos? That kind of do. Yeah.
Bass solo for me, it's like very intense. It's it builds it up and adds that bit of flavor to the song. It energizes me. It makes me want to, like I said before, go start throwing chairs around and breaking things. And it's just I have to give the song. I'm going to give it a Brad score, 20 out of 10. It's like, it's one of those songs. It's one of those songs that for me is iconic. It'll go down. People will still be listening to that song in 20, 30, 40, 50 years time, maybe even 100 years time, without doubt.
I agree. And that's why, to my point, I mean, you can play Monkey Wrench and Number of the Beast side by side, and they're almost the same song. So it's not an accident that Monkey Wrench was a big hit for Dave Grohl, because it's based on a great, great, great song. The only shame really is that back then at the time, Iron Maiden wasn't mainstream radio, but the thing is, it could be now, right? It's almost classic rock now, whereas at the time it was sort of, devil worshippers and heavy metal and, all that PMRC rubbish. And now it's like, it's on AM radio stations as classic rock. But it's a shame because, if they had released it in an era where Dave Grohl released Monkey Wrench, it would have been that big a hit on mainstream radio. Sure of it.
Yeah. Well, it's catchy.
Sure is catchy. Yeah.
Andrew.
There's a couple of things about the song. It's my favorite. It's my favorite Iron Maiden song by far. It's
of all time.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. I can't skip this song. It's certainly in my top three. Brad likes to talk about this, and I like to mention it because sometimes we listen to songs that are really short and they sound like they're long, and vice versa. This song here is only 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. But my gosh, when you listen to it, you think it feels like you've listened to
the whole album.
This is me. Yeah, it's I just I can't explain it, but it just seems like I've listened to a whole side with this song. It's almost like you need a rest, John. You know, you know, John's had 3 VBs during this song. Now he needs to lift the needle.
Yeah.
You know, and take a breath. You know, for the rest of the album, I just love the song. There's a couple of key points in here. You know, TJ Regan, about the different applications that the 2 guitar players had.
Yeah,
to how they
TJ. Yeah,
I
didn't know that either.
Very, very good point. And but Jeepers, look, the song it's phenomenal. I can't repeat what you guys said, other than it's. I have to Brad score this too. This is 20 out of 10 all the time, always. It's the song that I will play to anybody that has never heard of Iron Maiden. It's got everything. And one other thing before I hand it back over to Hoss, I'm going to do a shout out to a good mate of mine, Dwayne Sutherland, who's a bass player, and he's played in a lot of local metal bands. And he bought about 3 years ago the Dave Murray signature Fender precision bass. And my gosh, and I've got a couple of basses somewhere, but this bass is heavy. It's you know standard P bass is quite light, but this bass and anyway, my friend Dwayne, he had an amp, little amp there, and he played this. And it just, you know, the way that the melodic bass notes just blew me away. And that's one of the reasons why I think this song is so appealing, because it's the standout for me of Steve Harris's bass playing. 20 out of 10. Love it.
Let me ask you guys, around that same era, were there any other metal bands, British or American, that had a bass player so virtuosic and unique?
No,
it wasn't really, right? It was those bands were more about the guitarists, weren't they? The others.
Well, we weren't strangers to it because we'd been listening to Led Zeppelin. So John Paul Jones was doing a bit of that stuff behind the lead work as well, you know, doing his kind of...
Yeah,
you know,
I guess I don't really mean to say that he was the first, because, of course, there were some incredible virtuosic bass players before that.
Geezer.
Sorry, what's that?
Geezer Butler as well from Sabbath.
Geezer, of course. Right. And even if they weren't maybe virtuosic technically, but they certainly were they certainly had their own flamboyance as a bass player, more than what we were used to, you know. And I think but I just mean that even those 80s metal bands, whether they were British or American, I can't think of. I mean, look, there's a lot of great bass playing, but with Steve Harris, you just knew it was Steve Harris.
Yep. Yeah. Def Leppard's bassist wasn't doing anything like this. Nothing.
No.
Nothing. At the
Steve
time.
Harris
Dry's got nothing on this album.
No. I think of like that you can tell instantly it's Steve Harris on a bass in the same way you can instantly tell it's Alex Van Halen on the drums. I think I kind of see them as like that same sort of a thing, you know.
Totally.
All right. Well, Run to the Hills. Bang. So actually, Brett, you would know this from watching the doco, and I didn't know this, but the album was late coming out. So they were already on a massive tour, and they didn't have the album out, which they were spewing about. But obviously they, you know, discussed it and said, well, we've got to put something out. Can we just put a single out? So they did the whole tour with just Run to the Hills out as the single. Yeah. And then they dropped the album after the tour, which in their words, they said they wouldn't have planned it that way, but it maybe turned out to be awesome because the tour went so well and everyone loved Run to the Hills so much. In fact, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I know. On the British charts, it was #1 above Barbra Streisand, which is why, in honor of that, I'm wearing my Barbra Streisand top with AC/DC lettering. So, yeah. John Entwistle, yes, thank you, TJ. You're exactly right. So yeah, so they were number one. Actually, sorry, the album went number one, not the song. The album went number one above Barbara Streisand's Love Songs record. And I just think that, like, I mean, that shows you how amazing that record is, because Barbara was mainstream and across like multi-platforms and radio stations, and Iron Maiden was niche, and they still outsold it. So that, I mean, that's got to tell you, right? A bit like, probably, I know Jay on his show earlier, they were talking about Metallica and like Nothing Else Matters and stuff. And it was like that bigger song equivalently, I think. You know, when Metallica came out with Nothing Else Matters, it was on all the stations, even though they were a heavy metal band. And I think that Run to the Hills was as big for Iron Maiden equivalently, you know, back in 1982. And, oh man, it's, I mean, really, the only, it was really the crystallization of what I think of as the classic Iron Maiden galloping rock, you know, that horses on the plane. I mean, really, no one did that as good as Iron Maiden. It's almost Spinal Tappy how they just made that ding, 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 you know. And I think the only other song before Run to the Hills that had a hint of it, Brad knows, is it Killers?
Achilles' Last Stand, Zeppelin.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just talking about Maiden, but Achilles' Last Stand, right. Of course.
Sorry.
But I think the only other time even the Iron Maiden dabbled in that feel was the song Killers. I think had a it wasn't quite as pronounced as Run to the Hills. Run to the Hills was very overt. Killers had it. It was like the baby version, like they were just tampering with it, you know. But look, again, you know, I'm a sucker for Don't Bore Us, get to the chorus. And I tell you what, if what you want is a big melodic chorus, you can't get better than Run to the Hills, right? And one of the few songs where they actually piled it up with some backing vocals in the chorus, which they didn't really, as we talked about, they didn't really do. You know, they just sort of left it to Bruce. But man, it's no accident that song was so big. I mean, you've got a very unique subject matter, let's say it that way, you know, about the cowboys and the Native Americans, and you know, Bruce tells each verse from like both sides. So you know, he sings one from the Native Americans' point of view, and then one from the cowboys' point of view, and then the chorus, of course, is that, you know, everybody run to the hills. And I think that the fact that it was such a big hit, even in spite of, like, I mean, the subject must have been strange to hear at first, like talking about, and especially the verses have got some, I mean, you probably wouldn't get away with putting lyrics like that into a song in this political climate. You know, there's a lot of gory detail about the things that happened in the villages, but yet they get away with it because you open up into that chorus, you know, and could almost be Enrique Iglesias, you know, run to the hills, you know, whatever. But the chorus is so straight pop and melodic. That's really all I'm trying to say, is that you can get away with a lot in the verses. But yeah, 10 out of 10 for me.
This song is the classic gallop song. It's just classic gallop. I love this track. I think the intro to this is just as iconic as the last song, in my opinion. Like I just mentioned before, the gallop sort of thing, I can hear Achilles' Last Stand by Led Zeppelin in there. I don't know whether it was an influence to those guys or not, but there's definitely that, you know, if you listen to Achilles' Last Stand, you can hear, in my opinion, maybe that was something that Iron Maiden were influenced by. I'm not sure if I can confirm or not. But
I have I mean, everybody was, so it would make total sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and Bruce absolutely slaughters on this song. Like, vocally, he's just, you know, lyrically, like you touched on, but vocally, I mean, amazing. And the chorus is so catchy. I'm always blown away by the bass playing, like Steve Harris on this song. He's just sitting in the pocket. The guitars are like, especially on the solos, they're floating over that gallop rhythm. There's that, and
the solos are killer, aren't they, on this song?
Oh, unbelievable. And that little interlude where where the bass is sort of playing, it's just unreal. I love the extended double chorus out sort of thing. That's classic. You know, it is the song is written, in my opinion, to be a single. That last vocal out where he screams is just insane. Look, I'm not going to waffle on any more about it. I'll give it a 20 out of 10 again.
Hey,
and Andrew, it's up to you to close it off, mate, on this one.
Oh, look, I'm going to I'm going to agree with Brad again. You know, I have to Brad score this. Couple of things, guys. We've got 30 people watching us. Really, really appreciate the support on these shows, and all subscriptions to our channel we subscribe back. So everyone that subscribed during the show, you will have noticed that we've subscribed back. So we're not one of these channels that solicit subs. If you want to build your channel, we're here to help you too. So just get in contact with us. We'll do the best that we can in comments here or with Nightbot to help anything that you guys want to do. Talk to Hoss, talk to me, talk to Brad, talk to any of the co-hosts. We'll do the best that we can. Guys, I think the song is remarkable. Dick and Bruce's lyrics especially, you know, the way that his vocals, especially just do it for me.
Massive vocal. Yeah. Just confirmed for me a fan. Again, also another indication of how smart and how clever this band is, talking about Indigenous issues before they became trendy, before they became important back in 1981. So top marks to the guys of the music that we liked and loved back then, because they were onto it. They were smart, they were clever, they were taking all the stuff that they were reading and putting that into political agendas that were dominant at the time or just growing. Smart guys, I love it. It's an anthem for today. Run to the hills, because hopefully we won't have to be doing that. But I just, Brad score 20 out of 10. Yep. Anthemic for sure. It's absolutely no mystery to me at all why that song was as big as it was, why it was the smart choice to release as a single while they were touring. So yeah, it's a no-brainer that the minute they would have dropped that album, they would have had people lining up at the record stores, you know, back when that's what people did. Now they line up on their iPhones. But okay, yeah. Well, there's probably nothing much more to. Yeah. What's that? Nothing much more.
I'm lining up.
I'm lining up. Yeah, lining up in the comfort of my couch. Yeah.
Get off your couch and go to the record shop.
I remember when people used to actually take little makeshift tents and like park them in the middle of the city outside the record store, waiting for an album to drop. You know.
Yep.
Say what you want about streaming, and I know that it's getting a little bit better all the time in terms of government sanctions to, you know, get a higher percentage revenue, but it still takes squillions of streams to make any kind of real money compared to selling records. And the other thing is, more than that though, is I just think that people miss out on the opportunity of what it's like to actually be so excited for something that you have to camp out on a street overnight with your friends, and then you go in and you actually take a physical product home. And I just think that, you know, humans are tactile creatures, and I just think that's the part that's missing out of the equation. So who knows? Yeah. I know I sound like Grandpa Simpson. It's like this, it's even disgusting to my own ears. When I was young, kiddies were, but you know, I just know from even when I have like young artists or guitar students come to my house and they see my vinyl collection with a turntable, they're fascinated and they're like, "What's that?" You know. And I had a female singer I was doing a session with one time, and she looked at it and she goes, "How does it work?" And so I showed her how to put on. She's not crazy young. She was 24, right? So her eyes were popping out of her head. She goes, "Right, so you put that thing down, and then you take and I was like, "Yeah," and then you take the needle. But the thing is, she wasn't asking because it was like some old fuddy-duddy antiquated thing that she was making fun of. She was asking because she thought it was super cool, you know? It's like, and then she even said to me, she said, "Oh, right." So it's like psychologically, I guess, as you're taking the vinyl out, you dust it down, you put it on, like that. All of that is almost like a preparation, you know? like psychologically for that you're about to listen to somebody's work of art. And I said, it's exactly right. It's exactly what it is. It's like you're telling yourself, I'm going to now sit and listen to this for 30 minutes or whatever, you know? It's
an experience. It was an experience buying it, listening to it. A lot of that's lost, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I used to wag school to go to the record store and buy albums. Like now no one has to do that. But I'm sorry, I think that's a shame because I think that to like music so much that you'd have to skip school to go and buy the album, I think that's kind of fun, you know? But and then, of course, on the train on the way home, I would just spend the whole time reading all the liner notes, like who produced it? Ooh, Martin Birch. Who did this? Who did the artwork? You know, Derek Riggs. And, yeah. So, Gangland. I didn't think I'd get there so quickly on the show with you guys for this one, but for me, always a skip. I'll give it a 5. I mean, I don't hate it. I don't know. It's just, I guess when you've come off the back of on the same side of the record, Number of the Beast, and then Run to the Hills, and then we know what comes after Gangland, right? That's an amazing, epic song. I don't know. It felt a bit throwaway.
Hoss, the good thing about Gangland is it's only 3 minutes 49 long. So that's another good thing too.
Yeah, well, I think that tells you everything. I think that, you know, even if it was longer originally in rehearsals, Martin Birch just said, no, in and out, guys, for this one, you know. All we need is that that 8th track to plug up the second side of the record, you know.
Correct.
You reckon so? Yeah. Like I said, and I feel bad because there's nothing actually wrong with it. I don't hate it. It's just always a skip for me.
Look, I personally, it's got an upbeat feel. I mean, it's slightly different to the last songs, in my opinion. The stabbing verses are cool. Vocally, it's a hard song to sing over. I mean, the way musically, I would find it really hard to write lyrics and put a melody over that. It was very, I mean, however they did that was quite amazing. I'll give credit where credit's due.
Sure.
I mean, the chorus.
Sorry, Brad, go on.
No, you're right. Go.
I forgot something that I wanted to say about it, so I'll just squeeze it into your thing, is that all those accents in the verse, I actually find them kind of out of time. I think that it's about Iron Maiden are known for being super tight, right? And pretty much on all my other songs and records, they are. That one, to me, I feel like the verse keeps almost falling over. I just feel like it's not that in the pocket. It feels like they're rushing it. You know, like it just feels not centered and relaxed to me. And so that's one of the other things that I think that I struggle with that song, you know, is that I don't think, even apart from the songwriting, I don't think they executed it well.
Yeah, I can hear that, especially now that you've pointed it out. I'm picturing it in my head.
Yeah, there you go. TJ says the same thing. Yeah, too much push and pull in the verse. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why I said it would be so hard to come up with a melody to sing, like a melody vocal melody to sing over that. It's so hard. So
very hard
for that. Look, I haven't got I haven't got a soft spot for this song. I only gave it a 6 out of 10. I'll let the song play, but because it's part of the record. But normally, like when I first got the thing on CD, I never listened to the song. It was always
you skipped it. Oh, always a skip. Yeah, I mean, I remember even when I had it on cassette in my little ghetto blaster when I was 12 years old. I mean, I'm pretty sure I used to just hit fast forward on this one. You know, so that's saying something because it took time to fast forward because you had to wait. You know? So you almost were waiting for a quarter of the amount of time it would have taken to just play the song. So when you're skipping and still that it takes time to skip it means you really want to skip it. So that's why I say for me, I feel bad. I love Iron Maiden. I love this record. I just think that song is kind of the weakest song on it. And so for me, it was pretty much always a skip.
Look, it might have been the album filler they needed to just make it 44, 45 minutes.
Yeah, they obviously didn't have anything that they all liked better. So that's okay. Moral of the story, kids, is never write a song with the drummer. I'm joking.
You're going to upset a few people there. Andrew, what's your thoughts on it? I think you've alluded to it. So,
Yeah, look, I'm just going to give you guys a score. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I never liked the song. Never liked the song when it came out. And it's a sucker, isn't it? It's a sucker of a song because it's caught between, some giants, some standouts.
No, it is.
Yeah,
you're right, Andrew. It's stuck in between giants. So where the other song's not so giant, it probably wouldn't have been a skip for us.
Yeah. But thankfully, we, with the rankings show that we do, it's always the original album, and a lot of cats in the chat are saying, look at the Japanese release that came out. So, we've got some other versions that make up for the mistake.
The mistake, yeah.
But look, I'm just gonna before we go and talk about the next song, I'm going to back you up, boss. And look, it's a filler. It's a filler. And one of the great things that we like to do on this show is pat ourselves on the back when we all agree and recognize that some songs are fillers. But in the context of the album, you got to defend the album. But they were off their game on this. Maybe they should have done what the Beatles. Just write songs for your drummer. Maybe they should have just got the drummer to sing a song rather than write the song. Hoss.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree with all of that, as you guys would figure. I just think, look, Matt. Honestly, it's because the other songs on the album are giants. It's the perfect way to put it. What you said. We're at an album where the big songs were just not quite as big, like everything was just like really good. Then songs like Invaders and Gangland wouldn't even stick out. You'd go, great, no problem. You wouldn't think twice. The problem is the other songs are all smash hits. And therefore, you have like 6 smash hits on a record. I'm sorry, the other 2 are just going to seem dwarfed in comparison to them, So speaking of drummers, though, and drums, we didn't touch on this, but actually what I found really interesting is to learn that Bruce Dickinson wrote and played, I don't know if he played in the studio, but I know he wrote the intro to The Prisoner, is it?
Yeah, it's on that doco.
Yeah. So it's
being a frustrated drummer.
That slow, big, fat kind of drum groove Bruce came up with in rehearsal, yeah. So I kind of dig that too. Well, Hallowed Be Thy Name, final song on the record. And yeah, I saw TJ was saying about Total Eclipse. Look, I'm not as familiar with that song. I've heard it, of course, but I just never had that on the album, that particular one. So for me, yeah. So for me, it was an automatic skip. But Hallowed Be Thy Name, wow. That's a pretty good way to finish a record too. That's a journey, that song. And I love all that beautiful harmony and counterpoint with the bass and guitars up high in the intro, and Steve Harris is playing the high-end version. So you almost get this sort of old medieval madrigal kind of feel to it, especially with the bells tolling and stuff. And then it kind of goes into a semi Iron Maiden gallop, it's not quite as fast as Run to the Hills, of course, but it's sort of a slower gallop for them. And I think just incredible performances all around. Bruce was singing his butt off. The band feels tight, it feels really glued. And I don't know this, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have tracked to a click back then. I think they probably would have tracked the rhythm section just together and then did some overdubs of solos and vocals. So given that that's the case, I just think it feels really cohesive and tight and glued together. And it's a big, epic early 80s British metal song. And it's got light and shade. It's got dynamics. It takes you on a journey. 10 out of 10 for me. I think it's a great way to finish a record if that's, and also because it's not like a big fast rocker, it does almost have that lingering kind of thing that at the end of the record almost makes you want to just play the record again. It doesn't bash you over the ears so hard that you go, okay, yeah, that's enough. I'll listen to that again another day. You just sort of, it leaves you on it's like a mid-tempo rocker, but it's just classic Iron Maiden.
I like that. I like that. That's a really good point that you've made there.
What's
because
that?
It gives you that feel to want to play the record again, because sometimes if they end on too big a note, it's like you need to take a nap from it afterwards, because it's just, it's been an experience and overload.
100%.
Too much going on. So, I mean, the spooky intro, it's designed to have that sort of that horror sort of theme to it, in my opinion. It's got the bells chiming, you know. He's really capturing on that what it'd be like to be sitting waiting in a cell to go to the gallows pole, and basically you have your last breath. So, I love when the song kicks in, those iconic guitar lines. They're just beautiful.
It's great, isn't it?
So good. And, they're iconic. They're absolutely brilliant with the stops where Bruce is wailing. The song is epic. The drums and bass are relentless. The dual guitar lines, as you know, Hossa, I mean, they're so well thought of. They're not overdone. They're just perfect for the song, which is, that's a thing. When guitar players have got like natural ability to shred their ass off, sometimes they can do too much. And these guys were just perfect. They knew what was perfect for the song, and they just stuck to it. And kudos to both of them. They're great players, and
they really are.
Yeah, I think in that classic albums thing that were from one memory, I can't remember it was this song, I think it was, and he singles out the guitars, and you're hearing, just like Martin Birch has singled out the guitars, and you're hearing the guitars in the mix, and then he plays them doubling it. So they've just doubled it to get a bit of spread on it, but it's perfectly locked in. Amazing work.
I agree.
The bass and the guitar lines together.
Awesome.
Unreal. That stuff really excites me. I love the guitar harmonies. Bruce, like you said, he's slaying it on this one. He's singing his heart out.
And he really brought it on that record, didn't he? He really did. I mean, he is such a massive part of what that record is.
Yeah, and like this song in particular is a journey, and I think Bruce is leading it. Like he's lyrically, vocally, the experience is like he's the leader, the band are like galloping along, and he's like, that's how it feels to me. What an amazing last track for the record. This just goes to show how genius their songwriting was, in my opinion, this song.
Yeah. That's the other thing. We touched on it earlier, but with Maiden, you got the toughness, you got the aggression, you got the brutality, you occasionally got some soft things and stuff. But really what I think they had over a lot of other metal bands in the early 80s is the songwriting. Songwriting was so strong, and you just can't ever discount that. Like heavy metal just has to be more than clever guitar riffs. It just has to be. The thing that holds it all together, the glue, is the song. And they were just always so good at writing songs, and continued to be, like it's their legacy has proven that. But
look, without going on for hours about this one particular song, because it's one of my favorites on it, I'll give it a 20 out of 10.
Yeah.
Never a skip. Andrew.
Oh, look, I have to agree with you guys. This is the song that Eddie's chasing you down the road to. This is the soundtrack, isn't it? You're shitting yourself, and you don't know what's after you. And it's bad, and you have a look, and it's Eddie. Jeepers. Scared the shit out of a lot of people, this song, over the years, didn't it? I've been. I've been at some normie parties, you know what I mean by normie parties, and you don't have to play Slayer or anything like that, but you can just play this, and it's like, oh my gosh, people, it's great. It's great getting some people screaming and carrying.
Absolutely.
Look, I love this song. I'm just going to reiterate what everyone in the chat's saying, all the Iron Maiden experts in the chat. We've been blessed. Thank you guys for jumping on, passing your awesome comments. And remember too, guys, that you guys are part of what we're trying to achieve as organic fans here. We're just fans talking about music, and your comments are here too. So when we're dead and gone and someone's doing some research on Iron Maiden and they want to talk about what a Kiwi and 2 Aussies and some other people around the world are saying in relation to this band, you know, they're going to look at this material. And I mean that sincerely, because, you know, they're going to be, they want to know what organic fans are saying and thinking, and that's all we are. I love the song. I'm going to reiterate what everyone said. You know, it's this journey. It's 7 minutes of goodness, isn't it, Brad?
It really is. Yeah.
It's 7 minutes that you know. It's like a whole album that you said, Hoss, with the opening track. You know, it's just So just imagine if this album was like 15 songs, like Hoss said at the beginning of the you know, gosh, you'd have to go on holiday because.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be exhausted. Look, I love it. It's been a pleasure, Hoss, listening to this album 4 times over the last couple of days. I've been blown away by it. It's put me in some of those funny places, you know, that memory shoots you into sometimes with some big smiles on my face. It's been a great experience.
Yep. 100%. I've listened to it a couple of times, you know, over the last few days as well, and reacquainted myself with it. I mean, this is an album that I spun a lot when I was a kid, because it was my first vinyl. So there was no second vinyl to swap out. But then over the years, you know, as a teenager, I still listened to it a lot. But then as I got better on guitar, I started trying to play the riffs and trying to play the solos and all of that. And so it really stayed with me. And then, of course, you know, I dug into some of the other Iron Maiden records like Power Slave and a few things, you know, Somewhere in Time, you know, which I really liked as well. And, you know, I just think that it just ticks. It's not an accident that it was a huge breakthrough for them, because it just ticks every box. I mean, you've got hooks everywhere. You've got great songwriting. You got really, really great playing from everybody. There is like no slouches, you know, instrumentally. You got Bruce, who's just new in the band and revived the whole thing, you know, and singing his butt off. You know, and you got Martin Birch producing and engineering. I mean, how are you going to lose?
I think all the stars aligned for this record, but in a sense, the stars are already aligned for the band once the band became a band with Bruce in it. So I think, you know, from this point, you know, see you, John. And thanks for, you know, knocking off all the VBs. You know, you didn't leave any for us.
And also, John, thanks for your more intimate bits of knowledge and stuff that I wasn't across for the chat. It was awesome. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and just to reiterate what Andrew said before, you know, John, everyone in the chat that's contributing to this, we might not be typing their response in here, but we're reading the comments that are coming up, and we try and incorporate that in what we're talking about as well. So, you know, thank you so much for all your feedback, guys. You know, and after the show, I always go back and read the comments anyway for a laugh and try and get a flow with the actual what's happening. So please, if you haven't subscribed, I know there's a few people here watching that, you know, are fairly new to the channel. It'd be awesome if you could press the thumbs up and give us a subscribe. And like Andrew said, the channel will follow you back. And, you know, we're really pumped about, you know, everyone jumping in and doing it. And that's why we do it. We're just fans. We enjoy the music, you know. You know, Andrew will call me or Simon will call me on a private call. And we'll spend 2 hours chatting, but it's just great to be able to do it in this format as well. It's great to be able to do this, and the interaction is more needed now than ever. I think, you know, we all need to pull together and help each other through these times, and talking about music we love, and, you know, kindred spirits, I call them, people who love the same thing. It's great. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, and Jesus that was in the chat made that comment about thanks for the real ratings. No problems, brother. I mean, it's got to be that way, doesn't it? And you guys always do that, Brad and Andrew. You know, well, because otherwise it's meaningless, isn't it? I mean, a 10 only means a 10 when in reference to something else that's not a 10. So I just think that, you guys always do that. And So anyway, thank you, Jesus.
Has anyone seen Ironmaiden live?
Yeah, sadly, no. I almost did a couple of times when I was a teenager, and I didn't get to, and I bled over that for a long time. One time was just because I was a bit young and my parents didn't allow me to go, which is sort of embarrassing to admit, but that's what that was. And man, was I hard to deal with for a couple of weeks after that for them. So, and then another time, just the coordination didn't work out. I just wasn't available to go, and that was a shame too. But I mean, especially back then, that was really when they were in their prime live too. Would have been incredible to see, and obviously, can't go back and undo that. But so no is the answer for me. What about you, Brad?
Andrew, have you seen him?
No, I haven't. But I've lucky enough to have friends who have who are Iron Maiden nuts, who have followed them right through their career. I kind of stopped listening to them. Peace of Mind came out, I think, and then maybe Seventh Son of a Seventh Son or Power Slave, and then I kind of fell off, guys. I'll be honest and upfront with you guys. My music went more Van Halen-ish kind of, that kind of.
It did for me too, Andrew. So nothing to apologize for there. Yeah. I mean, mine fell off too. So I like Power Slave. I like Somewhere in Time. I kind of like Seventh Son. And then after that, and it wasn't like a conscious decision. I just sort of started listening to other things. Is all. Yeah, me and too. Also, me too. Maiden are one of those classic bands like AC/DC, right? Where really you're getting variations on a theme after a while. It's that same power chord riff rock with Bruce Dickinson doing his great job on the vocals. But, it's not like a band like, say, Radiohead or something where who knows what's going to happen, or Prince, where you just don't even know what the next album's going to sound like. I think that's different. And so, for me, I was like, okay, I've got my Maiden years and I hold to them and I still play those records and I still got all those posters as well that used to be in my bedroom. And I don't know. I just didn't feel the need to be as avidly keep going more of the same. I went in different directions, like you said, Andrew,
Yeah. And I've had some friends that have seen them live and they've been blown away by it. It was like Brad going to see Eddie Van Halen, you and yourself, and with me, trekking up from Hamilton to go to Auckland with four mates, to go and see, So and I dig that. I love hearing about that and having, when I used to have a few beers, having a few beers with mates talking about that and giving you the actual frame by frame rundown. Isn't it amazing that your mates can be half pissed sometimes and they can tell you exactly what went on at a rock concert, and they can tell you frame by frame, but then you try and get them to talk about something else. It's like, I can't remember.
Well, I went to see him. I saw him in 2008. I think it was February the 6th, 2008.
Where was that, Brad? Where were they playing?
Really?
Rod Laver.
Wow.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to go. I was like you guys. I'd gone off on a tangent a little bit away from them. And the drummer in my band at the time goes, man, I've got us Maiden tickets. We're going, bro. We're going. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I was lined up. And, mate, I tell you, I was on the floor, like right in front of the stage. And, like, we're getting pushed around. Like, you couldn't stay in the one spot. So I kind of got a bit tired of that, and I sort of went to the outskirts a bit. I went like to the outside of the floor section because it just kind of got a little bit too much. But man, what an intense show! And
wow,
there was not a beat missed, a note played wrong, and Bruce.
No, they're insane live, aren't they? Everyone says so. They're incredible. Yeah,
Bruce just completely slayed it, man. He was unbelievable. I went home from that gig. And all I did was listen to Iron Maiden for about 4 weeks straight after that. I was just, you know what I mean? It was an experience. And I'm grateful that I managed to go and see them. But I've only seen them once. So every other time that I've had the opportunity to see them, I've been either playing a gig or something's been on, and I just couldn't coordinate it properly.
Yeah.
Which is the downside to being a muso. Sometimes you miss some of your favorite artists because you've got a gig on yourself and you have to go stand in front of like a few hundred people going, geez, I wish I was at Maiden, you know?
I know. Yep. That's, the burden of being a musician, of course, is that quite often you're playing on a night where one of your heroes is in town, and it just always has a sting to it for sure. But
It's
hey, I'd like to sorry, go.
No, go.
I was just going to say a couple of things. Firstly, I'd like to shout out to Nelson. Thank you, brother. Yes, I've joined the zoo, apparently. And Nelson's saying about me jumping in with you guys. And but it's a beautiful zoo, and I'm obviously very honored. And so, yeah, thanks, Nelson. I've obviously chatted with you in various shows, you know, so saying hello. So thanks for that. And Nelson said it's not related to Number of the Beast, but we were talking about Iron Maiden's songwriting, you know, and Nelson, I saw there wrote Wasted Years. Oh man, or something. I got to tell you, I mean, that thing is an exercise in classic songwriting, that song. There is like nothing wrong with that song at all. That song has been covered in so many different genres by different famous artists. In fact, I don't know if you guys ever watched this TV series, Sons of Anarchy, but at the end of one of the episodes, and I can't remember what had happened, something obviously a bit solemn, you know, they had found like some guy did an acoustic country version, just him and the acoustic guitar playing Wasted Years. And I've got to tell you, and when I was watching it, I was like, I know this song. What's this? And I was just sitting there going, and I not only do I know it, I love this song. And I knew and I was like, what is this? And I just couldn't, it took me ages to place it. And then the next day it popped in my head, and it was Iron Maiden's Wasted Years, but done as like a country acoustic ballad. And that's when you know a song's well written, when it will translate to other genres, you know. And especially if you can balladify a heavy metal song, then that's a well-written song, you know. Because it's one thing to do it in a different style, but it's another thing to do it slowly and somberly and heartfelt, you know. And I realized just how great the lyrics were when I was listening to this acoustic version. It's like, man, those lyrics are gorgeous. So I ended up re-Googling the lyrics to make sure. And I was like, yep, killer. And then to this day, Wasted Years, if I had to pick like my very, very, very one favorite Iron Maiden song, probably be Wasted Years. So, so Nelson, you're right. You're right on the money, brother. Right on the money. What a song. In fact, I've always fantasized about playing, either recording my own version of that at some point, or, you know, just throwing it on YouTube or whatever, or whenever I do my own gigs, and even like, say, maybe like, I mean, this tribute to Eddie would be the wrong thing to do it for, but something else like that, where you just randomly throw in a version of Wasted Years. I mean, to me, it's not just one of their best songs, it's one of the best songs, you know?
Yep.
It's probably up there in my top 20 songs that I love of all time, you know?
Awesome.
Well, Hoss, we want to hear a version of it from you, mate.
Yeah.
Well, I might have to do that now. I've put my foot in it, haven't I? All right, leave it with me. I'll put my thinking cap on. I'll definitely whip something together. I probably won't sing it, but I'll get I don't know if Nina's still in the chat, but actually maybe Nina would be beautiful on that, you know, do a version.
Awesome.
Cool.
So that's awesome, Nelson. You know, Nelson is a great supporter, host of the channel, so we always appreciate.
I've definitely seen Nelson around. He's awesome. Yep. Yeah.
Great supporter and pusher of the channel, and so's Sonia. Sonia, Hoss has got some things up his sleeve that he's cooking with Brad, so he's going to be back doing some stuff on the 5150 show. We can't let you guys know what they are, but they are definitely conspiring. They've definitely got something cooked up. So Hoss is part of the 5150 family. That's a fact. So you'll be seeing him more. In fact, the three of us with three other guys are going to be back here in about 3 hours' time. So talking about Charlie Watts.
Watts. Yep.
I tell you what, Simon. And the slave grinder, mate. You know. And I'll tell you, when you try to back out, you'll get heavies knocking at your door, mate. There's no way out now.
Thank you, TJ. Awesome, brother.
But look, the good thing about this period of time that we're locked into, obviously, gives us an opportunity to do these, So, but
Yeah.
look, the 5150 show, which is a fortnightly show, and there's a couple of other things, seriously, that Brad and Hoss have got cooked up that, the channel's going to burst out for you guys. Yeah, some exciting times, exciting shows, exciting topics. Hoss, it's been great having you on the takeover. I'm just going to say one quick thing before you guys can say your quick thing. I'm going to take my dog for a walk soon and get ready for probably another 3-hour show.
Yeah.
But Hoss, thank you for jumping on and giving us some insights. And
No
I mean
problem.
this sincerely. I nothing more than I like hanging out is with guys that just love the music and Brad says it often too. We pick up on stuff that we've forgotten. So it's about me being selfish. It's not I'm glad that I'm listening to you and I'm listening to Brad. That's first and foremost. That's the reason why I do this. And the fact that we can build an online presence and use it as a platform to help other people that are related to us. We're that kind of channel. I want you guys to remember that. I'm going to keep saying it. If there's anything that you want us to do for what you guys are doing in the chat, let us know. We'll do it. Hoss.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure and an honor, as always, to jump in the chat with you guys. As you both know, I'd been voyeuristically watching your shows for a while before I jumped in with you a couple of weeks ago, and it's truly a pleasure. I love both of you to bits. You're awesome guys that I feel like I've made a couple of new friends, and that was really fun today to go down the rabbit hole. I haven't really listened to Iron Maiden for a while either. But like I was saying in the beginning, it was my very first vinyl, so it's always got a special place, It was a pleasure. I'll enjoy tuning into your next show in 3 hours, talking about Charlie Watts.
Yeah, well, thanks guys for first up, Hoss. Welcome aboard, and thank you so much for spending the last 2.5 hours with us. It's been great.
Of course.
And your insights are invaluable, mate. They're great. So thank you. And thank you for picking this album, because I haven't listened to it for, man, it must be at least 3 years, maybe 5 years. I don't even know. It's been
when you come back to it after that length of time, that's also when you do realize how well it's written, don't you? Because you come at it with new, fresh ears, Yeah,
that's it. I mean, look, you come back with fresh ears and hearing stuff, and the songs that you might have potentially skipped in the past, you don't, because you want to hear them. So it's great.
Yep.
And thank you everyone. Thank everyone in the chat. Thanks guys for joining in, Jay. Everyone in the chat there. Are you going to do a roll call, Andrew?
Yeah. So thank you guys. We're going to split soon. So Sonia, always a pleasure to see Sonia, Texas girl. Helps us a lot, Hoss, with sharing our channel on other platforms. Really appreciate it. Jay, 7/8. He's doing a shout out to you, saying he's going to see you Friday, Saturday. Teresa, awesome, all the way from Brazil. Keith Campbell, you guys are fantastic. Our brother Nelson, thank you, brother. Thank you for joining us. Danny Eddie's in here. Grace Miracle, thank you. TJ Regan, awesome comments. You helped the chat tick along with your insight. Fantastic.
Yeah,
John,
thanks, TJ.
John, the 24 can VV man. He's not here. He's gone back to work. But
and fellow Melburnian as well, legend.
Yeah. So who else have we got here? Alan. Thank you, Alan. Always a great supporter of the channel. We really appreciate your comments too. I'm going to kind of knock it off about there, because TJ, I think that's about it. We had Kurt, the Rev 5150, at the beginning of the show with us jumping in. So sub to the channel. We've got some great shows coming up for you guys. We've got the 5150 show in a couple of days' time. Like I said, we're going to be back in 3 hours' time talking about Charlie Watts. Brad is going on assignment. I'm going to say consignment. I was going to say we're going to pack you up and send you somewhere, but you're going on assignment with Hoss to go and do some bits and pieces. That's going to be epic. Can't wait for that.
Well, we don't have a date set because of the current situation, but when that eventuates, we'll be promoting it. We'll be pushing it. We're going to be.
Oh yeah, you definitely know. Yeah,
we'll get behind fair warning, and we're going to push those guys hardcore. And Hoss, yeah, it's going to be a pleasure to just be part of it, man. Be awesome.
It'll be an honor. The pleasure will be all mine, I promise you. And it's going to be a really fun day.
Awesome. Cool. And one more little thing before we go. There's our Instagram accounts that are attached to the channel. Easy. Brad Cook Music, Simon Williams 33, Kurt S 5150. I happen to have, and there's Hoss, there's Simon_Hosford. Sub to those Instagram accounts. Go to their stories, especially. Check out their stories because they're going to be doing bits and pieces. Obviously, that's attached to what they want to do. But if you want to find out what we're doing here too, that's also another place. Okay, we're out of here, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Love
Thanks,
you
Andrew.
guys.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.